Hello, everybody. Welcome to Armchair Expert. I am Doug Brinus. I'm joined by Patty Plimpleton.
Ooh.
Hi, Patty.
Hi, Doug.
Was that my name? I already forgot. Well, I do not forget the name of our guest today. His name is Pete Holmes. And after interviewing him, I checked out his show, Crashing, and I love it.
Yeah, you watched it on the plane.
That's right. I genuinely love it. It's so well done.
Yeah. And he also has a great podcast
That I've been on.
You Made It Weird.
You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes. He's also a stand-up comedian who is very popular in that regard. And he has a new book coming out, Comedy, Sex, God. It's available for pre-order now on Amazon and on sale May 14th. Give it a read. I'm sure you'll have a chuckle. You might even get sexually aroused. That's hopefully what will happen. Monica?
Yeah.
Buckle up for Pete Holmes.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Do me a favor and turn him 180. I think this is going to drive you crazy for the next hour and a half. Don't you want it this on the outside?
That's such a nice consideration.
Is it controlling or is it considerate?
This is a key thing, Monica. A key thing about me is I actually get upset when people don't. If you have a pro tip, it's like, tell me. Like, I'm the guy that gets mad if something is great and it changed your life. Why aren't you telling me?
Why are you keeping it to yourself?
Whereas some people might be like, don't control me, bro. I'm like, we're all stuck in a very confusing thing.
Yeah.
And if there's something that's like, eating fruit in the morning isn't too heavy and it kind of helps you face the day. I'm like, fucking thank you. I'm already eating Cocoa Krispies and I'm falling asleep in math class. Like, I'm going back to high school. Like,
Sure.
These
are old wounds.
They are old wounds. In fact, high school.
First of all, hi
Hello.
Pete Holmes.
Hi. We're already
It's the way they
chatting.
say it, though, right? It's the way they say it. If they,
I'll take
they
it
say,
anyway.
Really?
Yes.
Even if they say, what the fuck are you doing with those Cocoa Krispies, you weird?
Yeah, but I had an older brother, and that's how he corrected me. He wasn't like super mean about it.
Yeah.
But he might tease me out of things. Like, I remember the comedian Christian Finnegan. I was wearing remember the Palm Trio? It was like
Sure.
the phone before.
Had a little stylus that you would
sure.
could write with.
I had that, and I was so proud of it because I thought it was like the real. I know it was like the real comedian phone. It was like the real made it phone. Mm-hmm. Pre-iPhone, it was like if you had a Trio, it didn't just say like I have $300 because that's what it was, which was a ton.
Sure.
Now they're all $1,000, and we're used to it. But 300 something for a phone was crazy. But it was also like, what are you up to that you need constant email access?
Right.
And I wanted it, and I saw all the comedians had one. So I finally got one, and I was proud of it, so I clipped it to my belt.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it. I wanted
It was
like
like
Wyatt Earp.
Available.
And I went all out. I got like the clear case because I didn't want to hide that it was a Trio.
You didn't go full Glendale style and have a gold chain connecting it to your...
GS?
Yeah.
Glendale style? No.
Okay.
But then the first time I wore it, I was on the road with Christian. It was the Best Week Ever live tour, and I went downstairs and I had it clipped like a dad at Disneyland.
Yeah.
It was clipped to my belt, and he just went, belt clip, huh?
Oh,
And I just took it off.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, what an asshole. I was like, oh, right.
Well,
I just had a blind spot.
so I was just on your podcast last week.
Yes.
And your wife,
Valerie,
your beautiful wife, who's
Sweet
about to
lady.
bear life, she made this observation because she listens to Armchair. So she's hip to what's happening with me psychologically. She made this observation that Pete and I are basically two sides of a single coin. Like we have a lot of the same shared history, all these different issues we wrestle with, but we have the polar opposite reaction. So when he told me he told me he loves people telling him what to do, I was like, oh, well, right there. That's my number one pet peeve.
That's so interesting because maybe you know better. It's like you seem like we talked about nicotine, right?
Yeah.
And nicotine's interesting for like writing or getting your brain going or whatever. How did you know that? Did you just figure it out on your own?
I read stuff.
Like exercise makes you feel so good. Like you're just reading.
Reading.
So I'm not reading. I'm having things read to me in the wild. People just say stuff. And I'm like, okay. And you just want to forge it on your own.
Well, you would have been like, yes, it's how history had been passed on to us. You like the oral story.
I like an oral story. And it changes a little bit. It's a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
But in the wrongness is my own room to experiment.
And even if in its wrongness and all the iterations of its wrongness, there's still a pillar of truth. And that's a real testament to the pillar of truth.
We talked about how I loved what you said about the American government. The two-party system is to mimic this. I'm paraphrasing you. The turmoil of the human psyche. And then I was like, it's interesting how all these things that are successful often mimic the unsuccessfulness of the human condition.
Yeah.
The imperfectness of the human condition. And that's what I'm saying with the imperfectness of oral advice. I might get something that's wrong, but then like I that's part of it. It's built in. That's a good thing. Yeah. Because then I still have a relationship with it as opposed to being just handed the answer.
Well, now, in the event that people don't seek out your podcast to listen to our previous conversation.
Yeah, let's just do it again.
Let's do it again. But before we even do it again, let me tell you first what happened on it, and then we'll do it all over again.
Yeah. We just play it.
But I was just very bowled over by your personality.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes.
I'm so pleased.
Your
you made it
podcast
weird.
is great.
Oh, thank you, Monica. That sounded so false. I really mean it, though. It just came out wrong. Oh, thank you, Monica. I felt uncomfortable, so I overshot.
I'm sorry to make you uncomfortable.
No, you
it is
didn't.
great.
It's hard to say.
Unlike Dax, I'm very good at compliments.
Oh, good.
So I appreciate that. But a good one, a successful one, is one where you go, we're going to be friends now. Like another name of the podcast could have been "We're Gonna Be Friends Now."
Oh, that's a great name.
That's a good name, but it's called "You Made It Weird." If people want to hear it, what am I plugging?
Please do.
Dude, that's the point.
I know cross-pod promotion.
But can I say it started not unlike when you watch a movie? When you watch a movie and you're kind of just accumulating red flags, more than evaluating whether it's entertaining or fun or that was a good scene, you're almost just like, oh, that sucked, that was bad. And then after like 5 red flags, you're like, oh, this movie's not very good. So I arrive at your house. First of all, I'm like, oh, I love what part of town you live in. I love your choice in landscaping and the gate you had. I really liked. And then we
put in the gate. That's our. You gate. Did. That was our design. Love a good gate. I used to go on a lot of walks in our hood, and I'd take pictures of gates.
Yes, indoors. I love doors.
And you're such a man. I'm so pleased to tell you that. I'm just like, I looked at gates, and I sent photos to the contractor, and I was like, I really like these gates.
Okay.
And this is boring.
No,
this is like this is our first.
40% of our audience.
This is a red flag for this episode.
No, 40% of our audience we picked up from this old house. That's something that's in our metrics.
Bob Vila had something psychological going on where you were like, "Are you my dad?"
Yes.
He had because he was kind of goofy and sweet, but he was working with hammers.
Now, interesting,
right?
Did you really feel that way about him?
A little bit,
because I felt judged by him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was triggering for me
because he knows everything.
Because he was perfect dad. Perfect family. I was like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. This guy's perfect. His house, he builds his own house. We're a ragtag group,
he's so
single mom.
Sweet. I just think he looks like he's also going to make pancakes. He's going to make a shed, but then he's also going to make pancakes. Very kind.
He's going to make a table that he can display pancakes on.
I made both of them. I made everything you see here. But my dad worked.
There's wood chips in the pancakes.
What kind of pancakes are these? Maple wood.
Sawdust pancakes. Your father, though.
My dad worked with guys like that, and they weren't like Bob Vila. You know, they were like chain smoking, great guys, but like they seemed like 70s guys. Yellow tinted glasses, cigarette always in the mouth, buzzsaw.
Yes, I too. I was a roofer for a period of time, and the people I worked with generally weren't like Bob Vila. Vila, but isn't it LL?
I'll find out.
Spanish pronunciation.
You're going Spanish, yeah.
Roberto Villa.
Anyway, you were saying,
but he was more.
Gate.
I love the gate, right? So all these clues I'm getting, like, ooh, I love this neighborhood. I love this gate. I walk in your house; it's very warm and inviting, and it's not ostentatious or pretentious. It looks like a real home. It doesn't look like a photograph in a magazine, which drives me crazy sometimes when people are successful. Everything just looks
like a hotel.
Yes, I don't like that.
And
my wife and I often argue about this. I'm like, yeah, that's gorgeous, but who the fuck lives there? I don't,
Right. If I had to guess.
Okay.
And you tell me how I'm doing. That your house would be more on the pristine side. just because of the dual successes of not that Val's not a success, but you guys have 2 show business careers.
Val, I think we both agree Val's a failure. Abject failure.
Val is like the most successful person I know.
Yeah.
And
you can't buy what she has.
that's what I mean. Like what we're lacking, that's why I was drawn to her, and that's why you...
The whole I'm feeling just happens to generate money as an accident.
Right. That's right. I say this all the time. It's just a wonderful happenstance that what we need to do is valued in our society. Because I think about this all the time. I have people in my family or friends where I'm just like, who they are isn't valuable in a capitalist society. And that's a difficult thing to get to. We're just in this weird place where it's like, can you flash your personality and make it sizzle? And, you know what I mean? It's like, can you share and can you be engaging and be fun? It's like, those are good things, but like producing I have so many people in my life, a lot of people that don't produce, and then they don't really consume a lot either. So our society sort of looks down on them because they're just
not playing the game.
Exactly.
I think about this all the time. It's like my utopian goals also don't function with what I know about the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we should stop trying to buy things to
Fill a hole.
regulate our internal feelings.
Right.
I do it. I'm guilty of it.
Yep.
And clearly that's not the way. But then I go, okay, well, then everyone stops buying shit. Well, what the fuck's everyone going to do? Everyone needs something to do.
The deeper I get into showbiz, the less I consume of it. Like I watch fewer movies and TV, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm sort of putting myself out of business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even on my own podcast, we kind of talk about how nice it is to unplug a little bit and consume less. And then I'm like, but I'm also making the thing that I want people to consume.
Absolutely.
In the intro of that podcast, I'm still saying, please watch my show or listen to this podcast. Yeah. So I'm full of shit in that way.
Sure.
But this is what I'm saying. This is why we have the Republicans and the Democrats in our house. And I have that Republican energy that it's like, I like producing things and I like consuming things. And I also have a Bernie Sanders that's in there that's like, yes, but it's also valuable to just sit down and relax sometimes or whatever it is. First try on Bernie. Not bad.
Good.
Really?
That's pretty good.
More than not bad. I was like, oh, he must do Bernie.
Bernie's here.
Yeah. Can I try it? Do it one more time.
I just want you to know that the 1% of the 1%.
Okay, so what I think you're doing, is it's kind of putting your tongue at the roof of your mouth.
What you doing? You gotta have a little bit more New York in it.
Okay.
You want a little bit more New York City? I'm from New York. I'm from Brooklyn.
Okay, I want to dismantle the security and
I want to take down. I don't drive an Audi.
I don't.
I'm losing it now.
I don't believe in banking. There's no banking.
I wish people could see. It's 90% hand movement.
It is 90% hand movement. NPHM. I want to give you a compliment. The people that love Val and the people that love our house, I know those sound kind of trivial, but our house is cozy and warm and lived in.
Yes.
That's sort of, I wonder if you and Kristen have something like this. That's one of our tests. We have people that come by our house and they're just sort of like, I tell this story all the time because apparently it hurt my feelings. But we've had more than one showbiz friend come over and be like, this is a great starter house.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow.
And we're just like, this is like we have they're small bedrooms. Like our kids are not going to have their own Xbox TV setups, and they're just bedrooms. They're just bedrooms.
Place to go sleep.
It's a place to sleep.
For
so
slumber.
It's not one of those houses. And we don't have like, a lot of fancy stuff. But if you like the house, chances are you're going to like Val because that's what I'm into. I don't want to go into that.
To me, there's no
place.
pageantry or presentation to the house. It's genuinely what you guys enjoy being around, which I dig.
That's right. And that's kind of how I like my inner world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything's kind of out there, easy access. It's not too clean, but it's not too messy. That's how I like it in my noodle.
Yeah.
That's what I say about our house. It's a house. It's nice, but it's what a child would draw with crayons.
Where are you from?
I'm from Boston. Well, I say Boston because I look like, if I say Lexington, people think I mean Kentucky.
Sure, I would have.
We don't acknowledge that Lexington.
Okay, great.
We're from the birthplace
Moving
of the
on.
American Revolution.
Oh, okay.
You're
Well,
welcome.
okay.
Shot heard around the world. Lexington Concord.
Yeah, I read
Nathaniel
1776.
Hawthorne,
Nathaniel.
Emerson.
Nathaniel Hawthorne. What if you had your brat voice that you wanted to?
Score.
Orange
I was.
Washington.
But it's funny. I think this is where the Pete Dax dissimilarities might begin, is because Boston is a very not always. My experience of Boston was a very macho place.
Yes.
So growing up, I just went hard mom. I know you did too, but my way of going hard mom was like to not like the Red Sox and to love talking and going on walks and stuff. Like I
Right.
love gossiping and inner worlds and feelings and stuff. So like I sort of figured out at a young age that like Little League wasn't getting my dad's attention in the way that I hoped.
Okay.
So I became like a little showman, like a little buttery, soft showman.
But I would imagine in this suburb of Boston,
Yeah.
because there's a few cities that are a little macho, a little alpha-y, a little culture of pride-y.
Well, that's Boston too. There's so much pride. I did the joke on stage the other night. It's like, why do people get mad when you say fuck your mother? And it's like, you don't know my mother.
Yeah.
That sort of attitude that I have comes from like, why are you proud of being from a place? Like this is really, and I get it.
Well, because it's so indiscriminate. Like it's just weird that your parents got pregnant in that
Exactly.
location. And
It's like, well, Drew Michael, whose HBO special I liked quite a bit, has a joke about like, why are you proud of your big dick? It's like, it's something you had nothing to do with.
Right.
But I understand now. I used to have a bigger chip on my shoulder to be like, who cares? It's just land. It's just like a fucking thing. I understand pride and being proud of where you're from. And I understand. I used to be one of those kids that was like, the Red Sox aren't even from Boston. Like I understand. Like I was that guy. And I've sort of relaxed.
Yeah.
I understand clans. That sounds like
Tribalism.
Tribalism in a good way, in a way that it can give you meaning. And it's funny, my group was the group that was not being in the main group, but it was still a group. And I know that's like a freshman year of college observation.
Yeah.
In the same way that our non-fancy houses are also a way of sort of establishing a fanciness. You're so fancy that you don't even have to brag about how fancy.
well, yeah, I always think it's kind of gangster that we don't need to have
That's
a big
what
house.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're the gorilla in the jungle that doesn't have to have a silverback
Until
You're
it's
just
go
like,
time.
Until it's go time.
Right.
But that's a big point. And I'm only saying this because I think it might be interesting to you. Alpha beta-ness is a big move, and that's one of my big moves. And when I talk about how, like, I would never pee with the door open, for example, which you did.
Out of fear you might toot while you're peeing, or
No, out
that
of
someone would see your
fear that I
penis?
wouldn't start right away, and then I'd get
Okay.
in my head, and then I'd be like, now they can tell I'm not peeing.
Right.
That was my freshman year of college. Was the pee situation was just terrifying.
And did you have
It's
this?
like, what the fuck is going on? I took so many pretend poops to pee just because I couldn't handle. Somebody's talking to me like, yeah, that's when I took arts and theater. And I'm like, I'm trying to pretend I'm waist deep in a river right now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. And that happened once. And I'm the type of brain that will like live with that sort of embarrassment.
Did you also have the added thought, which I know a lot of guys I grew up with had, where you think that based on how girthy the stream is, the
Deep,
flow,
yeah.
like how hard the urine's hitting the toilet, the people that aren't with you in the commode are evaluating how big your penis is based on
Yes.
how thick and
But
ropey
Dax, see,
your.
this is
your-
why Val, thick and ropey. I'm sorry, I interrupted
Yeah.
the best part.
Yeah, it's all
But I'm
right.
so excited to agree with you because this is why Val was like, you guys should be friends. Because that is such my own thought. It's like, what are we really talking about here? And we're talking about penis shame.
Always.
Always. Almost always. And this is why men are so embarrassing, I say to Monica. But it's just like that situation is a primate situation. And I was never good in those situations. But it was a really wonderful feeling. I remember my roommate in college was kind of a man's man. He works for the FBI now. He's like a real tough dude. He has guns and shit. He's like
kicks doors down.
yeah, he's a macho guy.
Yeah.
And his friend is an even more macho guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at his bachelor party, we were all hanging out and we're drinking, which is also just a proof that you can consume poison and not die.
Sure,
which is
sure.
also a primate thing.
Yeah,
It's social.
It's a rite of
social
passage.
advertising is I can drink this and not die.
Mm-hmm.
I have a joke about that. I'm like, I can consume this and still fuck you. It's why we drink scotch instead of white wine because it's more impressive. It's more like, haha, nothing can stop me. Which is a testosterone thing because testosterone itself is poisonous.
Sure.
And so having a lot of testosterone is proof that you can have poison in your body but still live, which is why chiseled jaws and actually being bald and having hair on your back can be attractive to some women because it's signs of high testosterone. And I got that from Shane Moss. He did my podcast. He's brilliant. But anyway, I started to realize that like the way that I was alpha, was in how vulnerable and honest I could be. That's the alpha move of it.
I'm so glad you just said that
Yeah.
because I've been in a couple different debates with Monica and my wife. I think that all men employ some strategy. I don't think there's any man that doesn't have some
I'm
strategy.
glad.
A sex strategy and a
Yeah, and so my theory is it goes like this. Everyone in high school wants to go on a date with a pretty girl. I'm sorry. It's just that's what happens. We're animals. Much bigger part of our brain is evolved to do that activity than your frontal lobe thinking about how people are perceiving you. You're driven by that. And so many smart guys go, okay, well, I'm not going to be the quarterback of the football team, and I'm not going to punch a guy out at a cake party. Okay, so what am I going to do? Because I still really want women.
Yeah.
And this is where I've gotten into trouble is, please.
I'm the guest you've been waiting for.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Go. Say it.
No, I'm just saying if you're looking for someone to agree with this type of thinking,
Yeah.
I'm that person.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I have a joke. I'm doing it tonight. I have a show tonight, and I made my set list earlier, and I wrote down 90% erection. That's the name of the joke. And I'm not going to do the joke, but I'll explain the joke. It's also the idea that men achieve erections. It's an achievement. It's thought of as this thing that we sort of psych ourselves into, and we stay in a frame of mind. And so I'm going out of order, but the premise is 90% of male behavior is to get an erection later.
Oh.
So I kind of joke, like, we don't want to listen to Kid Rock. We don't want to wear wraparound Oakleys. We don't want to drive pickup trucks. We're trying to get a momentum going for later.
Priming the masculine pump.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of talk about how
It's like, fuck it. I'll put Ted Nugent. Ooh, I'm quarter hard.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I'm this guy. I'm this guy. I'm this guy. I can't speak for everybody. I think sex
Yeah.
is complicated.
Sure.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying for me, when I'm like out there conquering and feeling the pulse, and that's when I want to get funky.
Yeah.
So, and then I also talk about how fragile erections are and how weak men are. And that's why we need those things. And I say I've lost my erection because the dog came in and looked at me funny. So there's this vulnerability, and I can't handle that psychically. So the best part of the joke, I think, is I'm like, we know you want foreplay, but the erection is here. You don't understand. We're spinning plates right now. Like, he's shown up, and I don't want to do a 20-minute activity and just, sometimes he'll be fine.
Sure,
Like, I got a 20-minute fine. But sometimes you're like, if I do that, he might not come back.
I'm playing Russian roulette.
So guys we are idiots, but we're not fucking so stupid that we don't know that women would prefer lots of foreplay. It's not a strong move to fuck a person quickly. It's a weak move. We're going like, we better do this while we can.
Yeah.
And then, and this is the best part, at the joke I do, everything's about an erection, and I go, including this bit. I go, my wife is here tonight, and tonight I'm going to be like, and I move my hips, and I go, do you remember how vulnerable I was on stage? How I yelled my insecurities to those strangers? It's a move. It's not insincere.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's sort of what we were saying about fancy houses and fancy cars. I drive a non-fancy car, and that is in itself a sort of alpha beta move.
It is.
It's a beta. I don't even need a Lamborghini.
That's right.
If I were doing that, there would probably be part of me that's like, I'm doing what is appealing about me. Maybe not for sex, but I'm doing what's good. People like it. People want me around. They feed me and they include me. The more I'm this way.
Let's go a step further. So if you're not the captain of the football team appeals to whatever percentage of the female population it is. I don't know. Let's just randomly say it's 50%.
Very high.
So
From a guy who
from my
looks like the captain of the football team.
I do not feel like
I'm
I look
assuming it's 50.
I was not that guy in high school, but let's just say it is that. So the beta-ish guy knows, well, those 50% are completely off the table. Like, it's just not going to happen for them.
Right.
But this other 50%, I found this thing that they do find very attractive, and I'm going to lean into that as much as possible, which is just good sense if you're trying to procreate.
Work with what you got. And
That's why I'm
gonna be-
funny. Whether you think I look like the quarterback or not, I never felt like I looked like the quarterback.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to have a pretty tight
That brings me back
vocab
to,
game.
So here I am with my roommate and his even alpha ear carpenter, contractor guy. And after the bachelor party, and it was like a bachelor party weekend, I remember the guy.
Kind of an alpha move right there.
Yeah,
A
that's
whole
enough.
weekend? You're going to
Let's
claim
see.
a whole...
Dude,
my wife...
don't get me started.
I told my wife I was even having a bachelor party. She would have laughed herself silly, much less a fucking
hilarious.
weekend with the bros.
That's so funny. I didn't either. I don't think I had one. Oh, I probably did, and I'm forgetting. I didn't, but whatever. Anyway, I've gone to bachelor parties. I've been the guy that brought cigars, and I remember vividly some of the guys getting sick because I didn't smoke cigars, and I was like, this is what we're doing. Don't you understand? I'm hitting you in the face with my balls right now. It's so childish. I'm not proud of any of that, and that was over 10 years ago. But that's what a cigar is can you handle the nicotine of 75 cigarettes in a sitting?
Really quick.
Because I can, and that means I can take care of my kids.
Every
That's so
culture,
fucking stupid.
every culture has a ritualized act of courage that men do to prove to other men you can trust me in combat, out on a hunt.
Interesting.
We are evolved to display this loyalty to one another.
Yeah.
And we're kind of out of the old ways. We're not going to hit each other over the head with boards to do that or get fucking insane plate tattoos in our head,
Right.
So we're going to smoke cigars and drive fast cars and all this bonkers stuff. And it's just, I want you to know I will die with you in battle.
Right.
I just think it's dangerous I think you're right that everyone, men, women, everyone when they're young, figure out the thing that is attractive about them and lean into that. And if you're smart, you exacerbate those qualities and minimize the other ones. You gave another example.
Yeah, we won't say.
It's not fair to say because he doesn't think something's funny that you do think is funny, that he is compensating or he's leaning into this super liberal thing that he thinks is attractive. I think maybe early on he recognized this is a part of my personality that's bright and shiny and attractive, but that doesn't mean he's insincere when he's doing that. Now that is his personality.
But I think what might be missing from what we're saying is that I don't think it's necessarily scheming or Machiavellian.
It's not duplicitous.
It becomes an instinct at a certain point. You're just doing, like in the way that I'm trying to be polite right now. I'm not trying to have sex with anybody.
Right.
But I do, by habit, try to, because I want this podcast to be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm not being an asshole by wanting the show to be good, by kind of talking. And also there's a part of me watching my talk and going don't be too cocky. Don't interrupt too much. That doesn't mean it's insincere. I guess the bigger question is there any true selfless kind act that you can do?
Well, there's a motivation behind everything we do, right? I agree with that. But I don't think the motivation is always pussy.
I agree with you. I think really what you're talking about, I think, is acceptance.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
But the thing I really wanted to get to is I have to assume that your suburb of Boston was a little bit like my suburb of Detroit. And because you chose this lane and you're also a big guy, you're
like
tall.
Birmingham. Yeah.
Did guys fuck with you? Because I think there's this misnomer that, if you're big, you don't get bullied. But weirdly, a lot of guys are trying to prove themselves by attacking the big guys.
Yeah.
So could you stay in that lane peacefully?
Yeah, in a prison situation, I'd be the wise choice. If you want someone that's actually large but easy to take down, I'm your guy. That happened a little bit, but this actually goes to the punchline of that story with the Bachelor weekend, is that at the end of the weekend, and these are his words, not mine, we were young men, he was like, Jesus, if I could talk like Pete talks, I could fuck anybody. He basically said this to me and I just couldn't, it never occurred to me. It crystallized what was happening is what we're talking about is he was like, if I could talk how you could talk, I could go up to any girl and this, I don't think that's true, but he was like, and I could woo them with my smarts. And I was like, oh, this was a guy who in the course of the weekend, a TV broke and he got in his truck and he went and bought another TV.
Fell a tree.
And he installed it. He's like a fucking guy. And then I was like, Val and I talked, we were having a great conversation today and I was like, this is what I offer. I called the handyman to fix a very simple piece of leaking pipe this morning that other people probably would have known how to shut the water off and fix it. But I just call a guy.
Sure.
But that's sort of like an open move. The dad that won't stop and ask for directions. I go hard the other way, and that starts to become appealing as well. And then being able to talk and to communicate becomes its own type of alphaness. Well, that's kind of the stand-up comedy. I'm certain there's Joe Rogan, there's Bill Burr. There's a lot of like real men's men. But in the nerd scene, if you can pick a restaurant that you want to eat at quickly or put up a boundary, you're the silverback very quickly. So I sort of found my small pond. If I can just be like, I don't want Chinese. Like, you're the king.
God, that guy's
shit.
decisive.
Yeah.
I'd love to see his balls.
But that kind of goes into something else that I think is interesting. And I'm trying to, as I get older, I'm coming to terms with the fact I've always said that I'm not a competitive person. You could do a supercut of my podcast of me saying I'm not a competitive person.
I can't believe that's possible.
But it's true in some ways. And then the more I'm quiet with it, the more I'm like, that's absurd.
Yeah, probably just in the conventional ways, you're not competitive.
Right. And I don't have contentment issues. I don't compare my career to other people's careers. I'm sort of like, I don't even deserve credit for that. It's just something that sort of happens. I have a good amount of equanimity. And that's because I've got a lot of good love in my life, like Valerie, and I have values and things that are fed outside of show business, and that's taken a lot of work and all that sort of stuff. So I don't do that. But there is a child in me. My id is very childish and wants everyone to love him and present him with gifts. You know what I mean? He's in there.
Sure.
I think of him as Daniel Plainview. I think of my ego as Daniel Plainview.
From There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. I'm feeding the Plainview tonight. You know what I mean? But then the other glimpse I can get at him is like doing stand-up.
Isn't that why they say Bill Cosby was so awesome? Is that he would sit down in a chair, which is like already
he'd smoke a cigar.
Super beta move. Like it's not
alpha beta.
It's not a command presence.
Yeah.
And just to make that choice right out of the gate.
He was also super slow. I really learned something. We always have to say this: Bill Cosby's a monster and a rapist. And,
yeah, piece of shit.
Fuck
Continue.
That piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that's real.
Yes,
and the special himself, he's so slow at the beginning. I don't know if he's smoking a cigar in that special, but he did sit down. And this is the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Most of us come out to like, and Bill Cosby he comes out, they're cheering, and he sits down, and he does or doesn't light a cigar, and he sort of tells his first joke. And I've told
He almost seems to get tired during the telling of it.
He does.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, I noticed that the people, but that's so alpha. It's so alpha to be quiet. Quiet. I have a bit called Quiet is Cool. It never works. But quiet is cool. Think of Denzel Washington. He's like, that's you? All right. Because the quiet guy in the jungle isn't giving away your position.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you don't want think of a nerd. Hey guys! That's a nerd. Like he's ruining everything. Like you just gave up
your position.
Our lunch table.
Yeah.
And everyone can see we're with you fucking nerd. And then he does the first joke and then he acts surprised that they laughed. And I think that is such good acting. As somebody I know, he's done that act 1,000 times by the time he's filming it. And he tells the first joke and they laugh and he goes like a big Cosby face, like, oh, you're listening? And that's when you got him.
Right.
So that's something I learned from that rapist.
When did you start doing stand-up?
I believe it was, I think it was around 2000, 1999, 2000.
Okay, so
I've been doing it 18
39.
years.
Oh, you've been doing 80, so you were 21-ish?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. I did some quick math,
Yes,
Monica. So what it is, he's 39 and I deducted. Okay, so
I thought you read my mind.
what if that's even more plausible to you than someone being able to subtract quickly? Oh, this motherfucker's a what is
Occam's
it?
razor, he read my mind. But that was, stand-up was an acceptable and a polite way to everybody has, not everybody, but some of us have these deeply competitive, deeply aggressive feelings. I would play basketball. I've told this joke before. I wouldn't count points. I would count friends I had made. It was just about hanging out.
Yeah.
I would sometimes win the game or lose the game. And I didn't know the game was almost over. I just didn't get that stuff.
Sure.
But stand-up was the place where my plain view could come out. And he wanted to tear, like when I was young, I wanted to tear the motherfucker down. I had a lot of anger. You don't listen to that much punk rock if you're not like a little bit angry. And I wanted to exercise some feelings. My parents were not, more specifically, my father wasn't a great like listener.
And is he a funny man?
Yeah, he's a ham.
He is. And so there is there room for your personality in that house with another huge one? So this is where the competitiveness. I mean, if you were just going to be heard at the dinner table, you're going to have some angle.
Well, there's a Bible story. Everyone turns this thing off. It's an Old Testament story.
Okay.
Everybody's more comfortable with the Jewish one.
Yeah.
They belong to everybody. Traditionally, 3 religions claim the Old Testament. So it's Jacob and Esau, and I won't ask you if you're familiar with it, and it's almost over. Jacob and Esau is the story of these 2 brothers. Esau is red and hairy, so he's alpha.
Okay.
And he's a hunter, and he goes out with his father, and he kills things with his bare hands. I'm making the story better. The Bible needs to be punched up.
Yeah.
So he's going out, and he's just like drinking blood, and he's like, it says in the Bible, he's red. He's like, literally his skin is red. And then there's Jacob. And Jacob, they said, these are quotes, is a dweller of tents. So he's an indoor kid. Would be a big Xbox Live guy.
Sure.
And hung out with his mother. And I was Jacob. So my brother is hairy. He's actually kind of red too.
Okay.
And bonded with my father. And I
was he an athlete?
More than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The revelation that Little League wasn't working, or being obsessed with the Red Sox wasn't actually getting my father's attention in the way that it might appear to. I was going for the good stuff. I wanted to be deeply listened to. I wanted to be unconditionally loved. I wanted to be known, all that sort of stuff. So I was like, that seems like bullshit. And this is the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob made a pact basically with his mother, and they ended up stealing the blessing from the father. The father was going blind, and Jacob, it's actually kind of funny, puts animal skins on his arms so they're hairy, and sneaks in and lies and is like, I'm Esau. And this is a big deal in the Old Testament days. The father gives Esau the blessing, but is really Jacob, and then he thrives. He becomes Jacob that you know about. That's sort of what happened. Is I learned that through communication, through listening, through personality, and through a little bit of conniving, not that I stole it from my brother, I realized that was how I could get attention and stuff. And in the long game, I finally did get it from my father. But it was only once I started doing things that paid a lot of money.
Sure.
Then you could go, I did this. And he's like, what does that pay, Peter?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, that's $2,000 for a left-handed mug. For a podcast. He's like, what's that, Peter? Holy shit. Then he understood. It's impolite to talk about money, but with dads, it's sort of the only way.
Care about. Yeah.
It's the only way to his heart.
I think it always drove my dad nuts, and right until the end, that I wouldn't just tell him the exact number in my bank account.
That's hilarious.
And by the way, I probably would have let him indulge in that, but I knew he would tell everyone he knew because he would want to get the attention for himself somehow. Like there was nothing that I could give to him that he wouldn't immediately incorporate into his own attention seeking.
Well, that's sort of the narcissism of maybe both of our dads, is that once I became, and I say this with love, I love my dad. This isn't like, meh.
Yeah.
Once I became something he could brag about, he had a way to interact with me and enjoy me.
Yeah.
That he didn't quite understand when I was a kid in my PJs with my keyboard, improvising songs
right
in the hallway and interrupting his baseball game.
Do you think he thought you were gay at any point?
I'm really surprised he didn't. I was like, all my friends were girls.
Okay.
I traded stickers with the girls. I love girls.
Yeah.
Which is weird that that's a hint that you're gay. You know what I mean? Like in a traditional sort of thing. Like he doesn't exactly. Yeah. It's like on The Simpsons. You kissed a girl? That's so gay.
Yeah.
That's sort of... the girls were talking. They were talking.
Right.
And if they're talking, I could be funny.
Yeah.
So whether or not he thought I was gay, but I was also pretty sexual and would ask him to buy me pornography.
Oh.
Because again, I was the Jacob. So I was like, I want pornography. This is pre-internet.
Okay.
And I would just ask him, I'd go, Dad, would you please buy me a Playboy?
Oh,
I was
great.
in 7th grade or something.
Weirdly, now that's something we share in common, is that I stole a Playboy or two from my grandpa, my Papa Bob. And I was looking at it at the dinner table, and my mom came and sat down, and my brother, who's 5 years older than me, is like waiting for her to yell at me. And he goes, aren't you going to say anything to him? She's like, naked people. He's going to see him eventually.
I love
Like I was allowed to look at
Your mom is
Playboy.
played by Francis McDormand.
Oh, 1,000%. Great casting. Absolutely. Brandy
That's
McDormand.
so funny because my dad was going to do it. So my dad was more of the Francis McDormand. He was. This is the 80s, so it was not as sensitive or woke as we are now. So he was just flat out thrilled that his son wasn't gay.
Sure.
So he was probably maybe a little aware with my love of music and theater and being silly.
Yeah, he's
all
probably
the goddamn
relieved
time.
on some level.
Yeah, I wore a lot of rayon. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I loved like wearing like acid wash jeans and slap bracelets. So my mom, though, who was super religious, told my dad not.
Is that why you know the Bible? It's weird
Yeah.
to me that you know passages of the Bible.
I didn't say the chapter and verse. That would have been like super cool. If
Psalms
I was
12,
Genesis,
13.
But do you know it?
Deuteronomy 17.
I could guess. Genesis 20 is Abraham and Isaac, so it's got to be after that.
What a lovely story that is. I mean, if that's not enough to make you put the book down, I don't know what
so
could
funny.
be. Who gets to that story in the Bible? It's like, all right, so God, the God we worship, is going to make me kill my child to prove I love him.
That's so funny.
Yeah, let's keep going.
so
This sounds like
And
the.
he would have done it. On the new season of Crashing, one of the story arcs is that I start doing a Christian tour, and I do this whole, the reason I know it's Genesis 20 is I do a whole routine about how fucked up Abraham and Isaac is, and it's like, it's a whole to-do.
Yeah.
Whether or not I should
Sean
have
Hayes
done
did
it.
this play, this one man play, God, Can You Hear Me or something? Or no, It's Me, God or something. He was playing God. And boy, they got into that story.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's fucking bonkers.
It's, as a metaphor, it's beautiful.
Why? It's the worst metaphor I've ever heard. Is that someone would require of you to prove your love to them. That right there, out of the gates. That's completely flawed and the opposite of antithesis of unconditional.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
But
I've reacted. Now go ahead. I'm
no.
gonna calm down.
I agree with you. And I'm not a fundamentalist, and I'm not saying it says it, and therefore it has to be good. We can cut shit and say that's not good. And I'm not an expert on myth. You know, the metaphor being our attachments and our worldly desires are like a firstborn son. That's the analogy. The metaphor is our attachments and our desires are your firstborn son.
Well, hold on. Who says it's a metaphor? I feel like that is a last-ditch effort to give some semblance of fucking humanity to that
Usefulness.
story. Yes, like how long after written before they go, oh, well, what they really mean is your attachment to your television.
Well, you know, you start to get the feeling that you're dealing with metaphors and myths when snakes are talking and two people make everyone. You start to realize that you're dealing with a Semitic type, an ancient way of thinking.
Okay.
That is less concerned with what we consider truth, rational truth.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with trans-rational truth.
But also just to counter the notion that we're so attached to our worldly possessions. Let's go back to 3000 BC. People didn't have shit. You had a yak skin water sack. There's no way people were so
interesting.
attached to their shit.
that's what
There wasn't
makes
even consumerism yet.
But that's what makes it a good, to me, an interesting metaphor, that you have to give up everything. And I'm talking about an internal attachment. I'm not talking
Right.
about the new iPod. I'm talking about my attachment to my own identity is in the way of my understanding of God, of my union with God. My understanding of who I am in this world and that this is my son and this is my family and this is what's going to happen is in the way of my connection with a God that seems to be sort of outside of our minds, doing things that we don't understand and dancing in a way that we don't comprehend.
Sure, but I would argue your connection to your son is the only road that could even potentially lead me to the belief in a God. It's almost the opposite of that.
That's why it's a good story.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking about this story, and any good Jewish person would tell you that this conversation is the point of the story. And if it wasn't about God asking you to kill your son, would you debate it for thousands of years? I don't think you would.
Well,
If it was like,
that's a strong argument.
Give up your yak, it would be like it's a story about a guy who kills his yak. People were already killing their yaks.
Yeah.
And look at what happens in the New Testament. God's, I also believe this could be a metaphor, sacrifices his son. It's all about giving things up, giving up yourself, giving up your ego. And that's a very Eastern idea when you zoom out.
You think it's supposed to just what it's serving as a launching point to discuss morality
That the
more than a
conversation-
conclusion.
It's like what we're saying about Republicans and Democrats being imperfect. So here's an imperfect story.
Yeah.
That's what makes Jesus so compelling is that he's crucified.
He's handsome
and
as fuck, too.
He's very handsome
Yeah.
and very good carpenter.
Very.
He's up there with Bob
People
Vila.
underestimate his
Vila.
carpentry skills.
How did you say Vila?
Via?
Bob
Vila?
He's up there with Bob Vila.
Yeah.
But suffering and dying isn't perfect. That brings it into a human realm, and that makes it more interesting to discuss. By the way, I don't care if you want to throw the whole Bible away. I don't give a shit. I'm just saying,
Right.
I like that story.
Just not your Bible. We'll have to
Just
pry
not
it from your cold, dead hands
I don't
with
have
your,
a Bible
with your revolver.
But my mom was religious and didn't want me to have a Playboy. That's how we got there.
Okay. And when you were 21, you started doing stand-up. And were you in great fear of it like I was? Did it scare the fuck out of you?
Yeah, of course.
It's so scary, right?
It's still, I hate if someone comes up to me and goes, like I'm doing the show Hot Tub tonight, it's Monday, and they go, I see you're on Hot Tub on Monday. You say that to me on Thursday?
Your weekend's ruined?
I want to slice you with a samurai sword. I fucking hate your face. And people think they're being nice, and people think that I'm sort of potentially living, I've been doing it for 18 years, in a place where that's not scary. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's not scary, but I don't like thinking about it. It's like saying, hey, I see you're flying to Denver at 6 a.m. on Monday. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to think about all the things that I have to do. Oh, that makes me go, oh, I got to pack. I got to check in the night before because I don't want to get there at 5 a.m. and have it blah, 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 blah. So I don't want people pushing. So I still have some anxiety about stand-up. But the sort of interesting paradox of that is you need it. It's one of the fuels that makes you.
Well, look, I've had a lot of jobs where the outcome was highly predictable. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm pounding fucking flashing in with a penny nail, I know what's probably going to happen if I hit the nail correctly with the hammer.
Yep.
Whereas your job at any given moment, and I'm sure does occasionally, just goes completely sideways, right?
I had a show recently. You're never, but that's again, that's what
probably why
makes
you
it
love it. It's,
infinitely
you got to earn the
interesting.
approval every fucking time. Now, what is your trajectory from you build a stand-up career and you do quite well as a stand-up. You can be very comfortable just doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you could have done that. And what propelled you into creating the show?
Well, stand-up is your wife, and then everything else is you have a lot of mistresses.
Ooh.
So, but stand-up, my approach is I always like the term. I don't like the term comic. I always like the term comedian because I just like doing comedy. So, like I was doing stand-up, but it was actually Aziz. Aziz was one of those guys, one of the first guys that was doing sketch as well. Like he would shoot videos. Mm-hmm. And I haven't told this story in a while, so I haven't used this term in a while. I would start Burger Kinging people. Okay. Burger King opens where McDonald's already is. So they don't have an R&D. They do, but they don't have as much of an R&D department in that regard because they're just like, well, here's where McDonald's is.
Sure.
We'll open nearby. Because of the internet and stuff, I started to notice my friend Ryan Ridley, like I mentioned, Aziz, there are all these other ways to get content out there. And I've always said this, nobody believes you can do anything. I always thought I was a good comedic actor because I always used to make little videos with my friends. And I always loved that stuff because I just love comedy.
Yeah.
And I also like the rhythm I get in when I'm writing a sketch or writing a script or whatever it is. But I did these things for College Humor.
Which is huge.
10 of them. And they were huge. It was like this really... So then when you're trying to write for a TV show, your agents also send a link to like a really funny Batman sketch that you're in. And that helped open
super helpful.
doors as well. Open doors. Ugh.
It's okay.
You know what I mean?
Doors are real.
You feel on
Gotta
the
open 'em.
outside.
Doors
you're on the
are-
outside.
Doors are very real.
But then all the while doing stand-up.
Is it layered though? Is part of it like you have this healthy love for it, and then is another part like Monica and I talk about this all the time. She'll have a fucking audition in Santa Monica at 5 p.m. for Colgate, and she does not want to go, nor does she need to, because maybe she already has 3 commercials running. And
I laughed because Santa Monica,
Oh,
not at your predicament.
Oh,
I like that you thought I was just laughing at you. Imagine.
can you even believe it?
No, I think a joke is Monica went to Santa Monica.
Yeah.
I'm like, now
So
we're
Monica's in Santa Monica. So, and she'll walk me through it, and she'll go, if I don't drive to Santa Monica at 5 for something I don't want to do, then my good juju is going to disappear entirely because I'll have gotten too big for my britches. And we have this this relationship we think we have with luck.
Yeah,
or I do.
negotiating our luck with
You
the
want to
world.
stay low.
you just feel like it's all going to run out if you make a selfish move.
I understand.
Like it's almost a sign of cockiness that you might value your life a little bit more than that drive to Santa Monica for Colgate. And then something in the back of your mind goes, if I do that, then I'm never going to work again because I've just shown that I'm entitled and I'm not humble anymore.
It's leaving your way.
Right. So I'm wondering, if like part of it is you love it and all that, and another part of it is like a superstition almost.
I don't have superstitious or supernatural feelings about it, although I do know what you're talking about. You don't want to send something like that into the universe. But yeah, doing stand-up to me is a drive sometimes to Santa Monica at 5 o'clock, where you're like...
To prove you're still humble and hungry. And
I look at it as honoring past me. Past me did all this work. Sometimes past me looks at me and he's just like, what the fuck is your problem?
Oh.
Not even in a bad way, but sometimes I'll complain. Like I complained to you, didn't I? No, that was another guess. I'm
that
sorry.
your money counter broke. Is that what you're talking about? That your cash counter broke?
Right at the million mark. And now I have to
You had to throw a whole bag away.
And I threw I don't want to count this again. So I just burned it with my money burned.
It was either that or that you didn't put premium fuel in your Lamborghini and it was sputtering.
Hilarious. Sometimes former me will hear me go like, I don't want to go all the way to the Comedy Store. And he's just sort of like, he's not mad at me. He's just like, we used to be outside and now you're inside. It's a helpful exercise of gratitude. But really the main reason isn't superstition and it isn't trying to stay low, as I keep calling it. It's because I really do need it. And I think maybe I mentioned this, Val will say to me, I think you need to do a show.
They're your AA meetings.
They're my AA meetings.
As we realize, my
That's
wife
right.
will occasionally go like, I think you need to go to your Tuesday meeting. Like she'll remind me, oh, you're due for a checkup. And that's for you,
Yeah. I get off stage and I feel I've never done cocaine. I'm like, I think I just did. It's better than cocaine. It's self-generating. There's no low.
Well, it's not better than cocaine. I've done both. But it is great. It is very good. But what is it, do you think? Because another thing you said is you quit drinking a year ago. So clearly, people who don't need to quit drinking generally don't quit drinking. It's rarely a coincidence someone quits drinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you probably drank in some way that was minimally below your expectations of...
Yeah, it wasn't best me.
Yeah. And so... I know that you're into Buddhism, philosophy, a lot of different, I'll generalize and say seeking things.
Yeah. I like that.
Do you believe, do you think you have a handle on what is at the core of all that?
Of the drinking?
All of it.
All of it?
Needing to go do stand up to keep your let's just say that a lot of people don't need to regulate their mood with something else.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So just, I would say the fact that you recognize and can admit your mood needs regulation through this activity.
Yeah.
Are you curious? Do you think you just biochemically maybe are prone to depression? Have you had trauma?
It's anxiety and trauma.
Okay.
So we were talking about this today, actually. Feels like a bee in my belly. I have a bee in my belly.
Yes.
And that's what anxiety feels like. Or it feels like the sparks that come off chains if a chain is being dragged by a pickup truck. Those sort of like, it's like, I also have a joke where I go, my anxiety sounds like a Dave Matthews Band jam session. Just like too many fiddles, and 29 cymbals and stuff. There's just all these things going on. So right there is the most basic response is I have a bee in my belly. I go do stand up and I don't for days. It's like a wonderful, and then the deeper sort of answer is my, there was drinking in my house. So there was a lot of like figuring out what things meant. I became very good at figuring out how people
where things were going,
feel, where they're going.
Yeah.
Break the tension with humor.
Out of necessity.
Out of my own survival, out of my own, I had a bald spot on the side of my head out of stress. I know it was very
The girls asked if they could touch it.
No girls were talking to me. I don't know what they were saying. They were over there.
Pete. So did you feel like because you believed in God that if you stayed the course, you'd be vindicated? Because I think that could have been helpful for me to go like, yeah, you're getting shit on, but you know what? The meek will inherit the earth. You're going to get rewarded at some point.
Bible verses.
Oh, fucking love
Are we
it.
on a mount right now?
I love quoting scripture, guys.
You'd be scariest Christian. Can you promise me to never become a Christian?
Guys, I'm going to hit you with some scripture right now.
You would be the scariest, tall, muscly Christian.
Deuteronomy 13:17.
Oh my God, I know you. I would cast you as a Christian guy.
Oh, good.
Like a
good.
groovy kind of, but like underneath it all, it's not great. I also was looking for stand-up, and church gave me something similar, which was being listened to. You know what I mean? So the church was like was a group of people like religiously obliged to be kind.
Yeah.
I sort of took advantage, not in a bad way, in the way you're supposed to. Like I could kind of be myself in church. Church is actually where I first started getting up Bill Cosby again. I would get up and do my Bill Cosby impression. Or I would tell a story from a mission trip that I had been on. And I would get my first laughs. I did an impression of the youth pastor. Like that was like a very safe place for me because it's the minor leagues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? High school felt like the major leagues. And youth group was just sort of like, oh, these are just like the nice kids.
Yeah.
Sort of.
It's like performing in front of your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was very safe. But I was also looking for father figures. My dad was great, but I loved that there were like these Bob Vila types, like male leaders that were very nurturing and they loved God. And my dad is not religious. So it was very interesting to meet men that were kind of like my mother. And there's always something kind of going on there, which like mom would get along great with pastor. Like pastor was my dad. Like that sort of psychology going on there.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
What I also recognize in you that we have in common is it appears to me that it requires a lot of self-evaluation to keep yourself, like, if you just leave yourself to your own demise, it's going to end up in a negative place.
Right. Well, that goes to the drinking.
Yeah.
It's like people like us, I think we have this in common, enjoy going in, figuring out, tweaking the levels. And it's not this, I like Tim Ferriss, but I don't get the vibe from him that I get from me. Like there's Tim, you know who Tim Ferriss is?
Oh, yeah.
Tim Ferriss to me and Anthony Robbins to me seem like these sort of perfection warriors. I enjoy them as well, but that is not what I don't want the people listening to mistake me for that. It's so much less sexy and kind of together, and it's not this pursuit of perfection. It's just more of a quiet,
Keeping yourself out of the ditch.
Exactly. It's more Radiohead than that.
Yeah.
It's so much more wounded than that.
And so I have like, it's kind of a full-time job. And then occasionally I zoom out above my own head and I'm like, this must be so annoying to such a large section of the world to see how much, because really at the bottom of it would appear at least that it's just narcissism. It's like I have to be self-evaluating all the time, be super aware of how I'm coming across all the time. I have to do all these things to keep myself out of the ditch. I guess what I'm wondering is there any part of your brain that occasionally sees somebody that you have evaluated, right or wrong, is just simply cruising through life? They're not introspecting every 5 seconds, and they're not doing all this stuff. And you just think to yourself, I guess it's kind of, I often come out on this side of philosophy at the very end of it. It's like, well, you know what the real philosophy is stop asking, because there's no answer and you spend your whole life chasing your tail. And it's just eat a sandwich, go to the next thing, do this. I can't do it or I'll end up depressed. But are you envious of other people that at least it appears?
One, no, and give me 5 minutes and I'll come up with 15 things that I think they should be thinking about.
Okay.
Even if they seem like fine. And that I'm not like a
like
super
Seinfeld.
critical
I
person.
love Seinfeld. Do you like Seinfeld?
I do, yeah.
And do you ever watch Comedians in Cars?
I do, yeah.
Right, and he has this great, like he's with Zach Galifianakis at one
He's like,
point.
yeah.
And Zach is
We're not
annoyed with
private, we're
people.
public.
Yeah. Zach is annoyed with people filming him without his permission. I too get annoyed by that. Yeah. And then I hear Jerry just go like, get over it. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Well, I have no illusion of privacy out in the real world. And I think like, God, if he really thinks that seems liberating. I wish I could get there.
Yeah, but I think Seinfeld did get there. That's one of the reasons I like that show. And two, I think he worked really hard at it. He's like
he just doesn't
guy.
acknowledge that he does that work. There's something about
Yeah, no, he keeps that part out of it.
He does, because even when he's on Stern, he'll really make fun of Stern about his psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And yet somehow he does have some answers, Jerry.
I think he's doing the work himself. He's everybody might have their own path, and we might be totally wrong. But I would say, it's interesting. He said something on that show once that I just really repeat to myself all the time. He's like, we'll get there. And if it's this, we'll deal with it. Like this idea, like if it's closed, we'll deal with it. It's like such a great attitude.
Well, that's what I was going to say when you were saying you lament maybe driving to the Comedy Store. The thing I think is productive, as opposed to me going, well, if I'm not humble, all this will be taken from me. Opposed to that, I'll go, nothing ever in life is as big as my fear of it is. So I sit around and I worry about things at night sometimes for 2.5 hours. But real things happen to me all the time. Like I was driving my car down the 405. It fucking broke down. I'm on the side of the highway at 9:30 at night. Now that's something, if I think about that happening to me, it seems like the worst thing. And I could spend hours.
And there you
But
are.
I just went straight into like solution mode. Oh, I got to get a tow truck. I got to Uber.
Yes.
Ooh, this will be fun. I never Uber. When I'm in the actual situation, I can roll with anything and I love it. And then if I just am honest about my history, very rarely have I been super uncomfortable in a situation that was just insufferable.
Yeah, that's right.
But regularly, my thoughts go to this insufferable place.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
As we're about to have a child, I find people keep trying to impose
Infect
this panic
you.
and fear on us. And I understand it's going to be overwhelming, and I understand we're not going to be sleeping very much. But you're going to be there. I take a lot of comfort in going, it'll be us. It's not going to be Dream Pete that has like shit on his hand for some reason, like his own shit.
Oh, they love to say to you too, like I'll be out with my beautiful little daughters. They're so fun. They're doing something so cute. And the very first sentence out of someone's mouth is, wait till they're teenagers.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
It's like, well,
hit that person with a hockey stick. I don't need it. You know what it is? That is the benefit to me of mindfulness, of being there. We're often casting the line out way ahead of us, and we'll be there. We'll be kind. We'll be present. Presence is huge. Like so much of it is just like, I will be present with my daughter and I will not panic.
Here's what's hard. Doing work you don't want to do. That's hard. I've done lots of work I didn't want to do. Fucking detasseling corn 12 hours a day. I did not want to do that.
Yeah.
You want to change the diaper and clean her little butt and do all this shit.
I can't wait to meet her little butt.
Those things aren't work.
This
Those
is what
things
I'm
are
saying.
like
It's like
you.
being in love with an alarm clock that goes off every 90 minutes. Like, but people leave that out
Yes.
because they're trying to rush and get through it. Which also brings me to the other thing. And you're saying like we shouldn't waste our time, and I understand what you're saying. Navel gazing and slicing everything and talking about everything way too much. And I agree with that. And I sometimes think that model is with the understanding that we're going to find an answer. Whereas I would say that the questioning and the wrestling, something else Jacob did of Jacob and Esau fame, is the answer. So this is a more mythic approach. It's not that we're going to come at, meditation and yoga and then we get enlightened or whatever it is. It's more like, no, the conversation and even the wondering if we're wasting our time by having the conversation is the point.
Well, it's my lifetime goal is to love process and not worry about results.
Yeah,
That's
there you
really like
It's a great
minimally when I'm happy is when I'm just enjoying the process and never thinking about the results.
Yeah, I actually think it's quite funny is that this is Ram Dass. I almost made it the whole podcast without mentioning Ram Dass. I mentioned Ram Dass too much. Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now. And there's this thing
Sam
about,
Harris is my Ram Dass, by the way.
Is that
So we
right?
all have.
We all have our guys.
Yeah.
He talks about, it's really funny. It's the idea that like you want ice cream, and then you eat ice cream, and then you want water, and you have water, and then you want television, and then you get sleep. You have sleep, and then you want coffee. And it's like, I think a lot of people sort of confuse the events of life as like life as what the point is. The truth is like we should be sort of hovering over all of that. The desires can be there. The attachment to them and the attachment to their outcome is what you're surrendering. So I want my car to start when I get in. But if we can sort of step behind that desire and not be so attached to it, one of the practices that I have is called good episode. So if my car breaks down, I'll actually say to myself, good episode, out loud. I'll go, good episode.
Meaning like if this were an episode of TV, it would be a good episode?
That's like a season finale. Pete's car breaks down. Or it's a good fun bottle episode. Like, what's he going to do? I think one of the reasons we like watching TV is because we can be dispassionate about it. We care
It's someone
about
else's fucking
It's someone else's
dirty laundry.
We
to
are
clean.
invested, though. We care about them. We cry and we laugh. And so we're invested, but we also know that we're on the couch. there's also something sort of going on similar with your awareness, is that you're stuck in Dax, like you're in there and I'm in here, but you're also sort of witnessing it. And that's where some of the less attachment to your suffering comes. And that's where a little bit of peace comes. And even when my wife left me, you can look at a moment like that and go like, holy fuck, what is Pete going to do here? And that does.
And you're referring to
decrease a
your
little
show
bit.
now.
Well, that really happened, but yeah.
So you were married prior?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh,
about
yeah,
you.
no, that's all.
For how long?
6 years. Yeah, 6.
That's
We were together for 7 total.
That's a lengthy period of time.
Yeah, it was longer than college.
And how autobiographical is the show?
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
But it's a comedy about a guy crashing. It's called Crashing. He's crashing on couches, but he's also crashing in life. It's one of those sort of, there's cringe moments and there's like pain, but there's also like real drama. Like I've cried on camera, I don't know, once a season. Like it's not Handmaid's Tale where she cries every episode, but it's like there's a lot of emotion happening in the show.
Judd Apatow produces your show, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that's his specialty, like comedy out of pain.
That's why I pitched it to him.
Yeah. That's him.
It wasn't like you can make this happen because you're Judd Apatow. It was like, I think this is like your
Sensibility.
seed of show.
So were you able to go into that relationship going, this guy knows something I don't know? Like I know how to be me, but if I go through his...
I actually think that's one of... So this Friday, we cut together this thing that I was like, this is my favorite. It's me doing stand-up. But it's this sort of like pivotal moment in the show. It's like the finale of the last episode. And it's this like, I go off script and on the day I was improvising and we got there. Like we got to what we needed. We needed this. It wasn't supposed to be hilarious. It was supposed to be heartfelt, and it was supposed to wrap up a lot of strings in the season. It was supposed to be a little existential. And I got on the day, very difficult.
Lightning struck and you did it.
Lightning struck.
Yeah.
And without a script, I was so proud of myself. I made it happen. The quality in the room, the air changed and everybody felt it.
Yeah.
Everybody at the monitors felt it. And I was like, I've never done something like that where I feel like I was acting better because I was improvising and all this stuff. And I was like, that's going to be the perfect way to end the season. So we cut it together and we show it to Judd and he's just like, I don't think that's right.
Oh, wow.
And because I trust him so implicitly, if anyone else had said that, I would have been like, well, you're wrong.
For sure, yeah.
He says it, and my heart breaks a little bit, and I'll tell him that. I'll be like, I really like this.
Yeah.
But I see what happens, especially when people like me, creative types, manic types, I get very excited about my own work.
Yeah.
Even as I'm telling you the story, I'm telling you how I made lightning strike in the room, improvising on that day. Well, does any of that, is that in the show? You know what I mean?
Right.
Are there going to be subtitles at the bottom that say Pete was improvising?
No.
Or you could really feel it. So here I am doing this thing that I'm like, this is my favorite thing in the world. He says, I don't think it's right. And then I don't say this in the sad way. I surrender to it. And he helps me be my funniest and my best. And then every once in a while, like a Zen master, actually, in a way that's very confusing to me, because I actually said when we edited, I was like, there's no doubt in my mind Judd is going to love this.
Right.
And then he didn't. And that's what Zen is. It's like confusing the student. But after I thought about it, I was like, he is doing the hard work of going, I'm protecting the show. I know you're, he didn't say any of this. I know you're proud of yourself.
Sure.
And that's a good late night panel
you
story.
got married to this thing.
Good for you. Oh, look at what a big boy you are. Big
You didn't even need a
scene.
script?
Yeah, you're already writing your Golden Globe acceptance speech. He doesn't give a fuck. And that's one of the geniuses of Judd. Yeah.
So did the show start out super autobiographical and then slowly take on a life of its own? And,
Yes.
and did you feel any moral complications with telling a story that was two people's story?
You mean my ex-wife?
Yeah.
I really...
Is it an amicable separation? Let's just start there.
We haven't talked in, I don't know, it's been a decade. She had an affair and she left me. And this is totally comfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of a black and white person, and it's sort of I have enough friends that haven't cuckolded me.
Right. But
You know what I mean? What are we going to get, an ice cream cone?
and is that
Fucking
something
beat it. There's a beautiful. I'm only friends with like one of my exes. For the most part, it's like,
Oh, really?
Oh, we thought we were going to be together forever. It didn't work, and it's like I'd rather not hang out.
Again, the yin and the yang. I'm
Is that
like
right?
great friends with all my ex-girlfriends.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Were you completely broadsided by it, or did you have inklings of it? You had no inkling.
I just, I was 22 when I got married, and I was 28 when she left.
Yeah.
And it was a simpler time. I was like, you get married and you're married.
Uh-huh.
Like I never.
Do you think you underestimated the amount of work that goes into being married?
I think I underestimated how complicated a healthy relationship is, how nuanced it is.
Yeah.
Because I thought we don't fight. I'm never mean. We're always kind. We're silly and we laugh.
Yeah.
And I give her my time. People always guess that it was because I was on the road all the time or something.
Right.
I always get really mad at that because I wasn't working that much.
Right.
So I was around a lot and I wanted to be with her a lot. It's unfortunate that she sort of gets painted maybe in her life with a broad brush because she had an affair and left.
Yeah.
And I've made this comparison before, but there's that Bob Dylan lyric in If You See Her, Say Hello. And he says, if you see her, tell her I always respected her in doing what she did and getting free.
Uh-huh.
So what was happening was I wasn't seeing or acknowledging her in the fullness of who she was.
Uh-huh.
And I was actually...
Were you a little consumed with starting this career and stuff?
Oh, yeah, that's the whole other
Yeah.
tongue of this two-tonguer.
Yeah.
I was trying to like just sort of clip her wings and simplify her and put her on a pedestal and make her very sweet and safe and easy. As I were saying this, I'm like, Val is those things. She is very sweet and safe and easy. But my ex wasn't that. So I was sort of treating her like what I wanted in hopes that she would be what I wanted. And she sort of, it's very passive aggressive. And it's also just aggressive. But it seems sweet. So I'm being...
Can I just say, I'm very guilty of that too. Where in the past, I have tried to, whether consciously or unconsciously, almost shape their personality so it'll fit perfectly into the role I need them to play in my life.
Well, we got married. We got married because we had sex, and I wanted to move to Chicago, and I was religious.
Yeah.
So I'm in this. So what I did was, not making excuses, but what I was doing was to make it work in the ways, I was 22, in the ways that I thought, I was like, I like sweet, I like safe, I don't want drama, I don't want fighting. I'm threatened by...
By the way, I'm tackling something that's incredibly scary and almost impossible to achieve at stand-up. Or a career in show business. So I want this other aspect of my life to be simple. To be very simple.
It's like Magnolia, where John C. Reilly is like, I have enough drama in my work, so I don't want to come home to it.
Yeah.
So it's that idea that I was also, and I'm very open about this now, my real love was comedy, which is a safer way of saying myself.
Yeah.
When she broke up with me, she actually said, I don't want to be Pete Holmes' wife. Like, that doesn't interest me. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So the fact that I was like, she very much enabled my stand-up. And I think I mixed the love and gratitude I had for that. Like, I wanted to move to Chicago, right? I wanted to move to Chicago, do Improv Olympic in Second City, and get on SNL. That was like my goal. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go alone. This is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I'm dating a girl, and we had sex. And when we had sex, we got engaged, like we were going to do it. I was like, this sort of, again, I was 22. It's the only excuse I can make. I'm 22. And I'm like, well, we'll get married, and then I'll go. It's scary when you've never been in the real world. I also went to a Christian college. It was like a bubble. It was so fucking safe and neutered. And I wanted to move to Chicago and go every night into bars and try and do stand-up and improv.
Yeah.
Find an apartment, get a car, get a job.
Yeah, to be alone on top of all those things.
And to be alone. It was just like, this is the summation of why I think my first marriage didn't work, is because I thought of it as a box that I had ticked.
Yeah.
I went, I have a wife.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. And then I think, too, the whole reason you end up taking ownership of your own mistakes is to, A, recognize what you need to make amends for to the other person. But then once you've done that step's required so that you can eventually get to the part where it's okay now to forgive 22-year-old Pete.
Yeah.
You know, it's not okay to forgive yourself before you've said sorry to the people that were the victim of that. But once you've done that work, and then you can actually go, and by the way, man, I was 22 and this is my first shot at all this and I fucked up and it's okay. I'm a normal, I'm just like everyone else. Like, that's the goal, is to come out where you actually can forgive yourself.
Yeah. You're sort of making me realize that there probably is a part of me that would want to talk to her and apologize in that way.
Well, do you know?
And I think Crashing kind of is sort of that. It's this very weird backwards way of tying a message to a pigeon.
Yeah.
I don't know if she watched it, but if she did, I think she would see these little winks at like, I mean, the show opens with me disappointing her sexually and then disappointing her by leaving at like 3:00 on a Sunday to do an open mic. And I'm just so oblivious about how she might be feeling. And I leave and it cuts back to her on the couch looking like, what the fuck? And the reason it cuts back is because I'm in the edit and I go, now cut back to her on the couch. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm involved in that shit. I'm trying to keep us with her. I've said many times, I'm like, in the story of my wife's divorce, you're rooting for my wife to leave. And just because it's the last thing that I wanted to happen, and even though technically, and I made this point when we were breaking up, I didn't do anything wrong. I was nice to her.
Sure.
I said, you're trading good for potentially great, because she had met this other guy, and she was like, that's absolutely true. But I do admire that. She wanted something better, and she sort of, I think she made the point, she was like, you've already met the love of your life and it's comedy. And then like, I couldn't be as emotionally and relationally available as I am until I met Val, which was after I already had a talk show, which got a lot of the me-ness out of my system, or at least taught me how to manage it.
Yeah.
And then I had a podcast and a stand-up career, and these things were thriving. And then when I could sort of relax, my plain view was fed, I could go, all right, now I can, what I've been doing for the past 10 years, which is focus on being a person apart from my show business.
And when you achieve those benchmarks and you actually don't feel different, it's a great opportunity to evaluate, then what is going to make me feel different?
It's interesting.
But it's only a luxury of having found out that the dream was false.
You're like, you said very funny on my podcast, you were like, if young Dax could hear me say $1 million won't make you happy, he'd be like,
fuck
shut
you.
The fuck up.
Yeah, totally.
So you're right. We have the good fortune of getting to the place. What I've noticed it doesn't feel good to a certain extent, and I believe the number is 50,000, to a certain extent is making money and not having to worry about your needs being met does feel great.
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's in a Malcolm Gladwell book. I think for a family, it even goes up to, at least you're still fine or plateauing at to 237 even.
Yeah,
And then it starts getting diminished return. Yeah.
It's also in the movie Happy, which is a good documentary.
great movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
So of course we.
Yeah, when you need your needs to be met.
To me, it's not status or money or fame or any of these things. Doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing and answering the phone that rings in my heart.
Yeah.
That's where meaning comes from for me. It just so happens that making a TV show is wrapped up in that sort of stuff, but I'm not doing it.
But again, to circle back, it's actually the process that's giving you the esteem. Did you then have a little bit of a laundry list of going into you and Val's relationship that you said, well, yeah, I got to avoid a couple of these things.
Well, one of them,
to not repeat a pattern.
What the most important one was listen and let people be who they actually are.
Yeah,
and don't try to. Yeah,
it's so gross.
What a tool
isn't it?
I was to like kind of like whisper.
But again, to forgive yourself,
I know
you're actually in search of making them predictable.
Yeah,
because again, you grew up in a lot of.
That's right. But two, I had met Val in a way I had calmed down and I knew what my non-negotiables were. And now when I met Val, she already knew I was a comedian. That was very, very helpful. It's just this, it's the self-realized person. It doesn't have to be comedian. It's just like, these are the ABCs of Barry. And Barry knows that he needs to fish one weekend a month. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or he needs to be in the woodshed doing this thing or this. And then you meet someone like Val, who does want to be Pete Holmes' wife, not because of the celebrity. We don't give a fuck about party. We don't go to parties. We don't go to gifting things whenever there's nothing fancy going on.
Yeah.
But she loves being in the car with me when I'm silly and we laugh. And then I go, can you please email that to me? Whatever I said. She's in it. She comes to the show. I do it. I hear her
That's
laughing
great.
in the wings. Everyone loves her more than me. There's no, and this is my wife, like she's there. You met her. She's there. Performers are drawn to her. She's comforting and nurturing. Everyone who I give a fuck about understands the beauty of Val. And the fact that I met her fully cooked,
Yeah.
I don't think I could have had a healthy relationship until I was like, I need people to know I'm a baseball player. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was a comedian, but I need them to go, that guy plays for the Mariners. It's like, I want them to know, like, it's embarrassing to talk about our egos, I suppose, but like my first wife and I were like, maybe we'll live in Woodstock. And we went to Woodstock and the realtor, we couldn't afford anything in Woodstock. We had $3,000 in the bank. But they were like, this house belongs to Uma Thurman. And I just remember a quiet voice in my head going like, I don't want to live somewhere until they go, do you like comedy? This is Pete Holmes' house. Like it's gross. I know.
Sure.
But like I had something, the phone was ringing in my heart and I maybe confused that with a desire for fame. But I had spent enough motherfucking time making peace at my dinner table. And I had spent enough motherfucking time lying that I was going to be a youth pastor at a lame-ass Christian college, being polite and shutting my fucking mouth. And once I was out, it was time to burn the goddamn barn down.
Yeah.
And I should have been more honest about that. With my ex-wife, I should have been like, I know I'm a sweet guy, but I have a huge axe strapped to my back, and I'm going to run into the Bavarian hordes or Bavarian cream pies. I need to do some shit.
Yeah.
But when I had met Val, the battle was over. There was dead lambs in our silo. And I could just say, would you like to talk about the meaning of life? Or would you like to be silly with no meaning?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the time when I was emotionally available.
And I think most careers require a pretty all-in dedication to succeed at any whatever the career is. And it can get dicey.
There was a deleted scene. Lauren Lapkus plays my wife on the show, my ex-wife. And it was very surreal to act out these fights that my ex and I had. It wasn't the words, but often some of the spirit was carried through. And I was feeding her lines to say, it was actually things that I knew would make me cry because I had to cry or I wanted to cry in the scene. And then I had her say, had her ask me, if you're holding me over the cliff and comedy in the other hand, like which one do you pull up? You can only, like the good son.
Yeah.
And I had to think about it. And while I was thinking about it, she just went, like mime falling. And that's what it was. It's grotesque and it's not polite and it's a little bit embarrassing. And it was my fucking love.
Lifeline. Well, I'm excited to talk to you again post-baby.
PB.
Because, again, I'm going to be the annoying person that's already a parent. But I think a lot of things will get crystal clear for you.
Oh, wow.
And they're the best things that can get crystal clear.
Oh, what fun.
Yeah, just everything getting their proportional, right-sized importance.
Yes.
Happens like that.
Yeah.
So whatever you think comedy is and serves in your life and the bee and the belly and all that shit.
Yeah.
My prediction is, again, when I just say I hate when people meet you with your kids, wait till this, but I'm saying it now.
Yeah, that's fine.
That thing that was a 10, you'll now realize was at its best a 4.
Dude, that's what I want so bad.
It's so, again, for me, for a narcissistic egomaniac in search of endless approval, it was the antidote for me. People hate how much I rail on about having kids, but just for me personally, finally giving a shit about someone more than myself, it was so liberating to me. The whole pursuit of control it needs to be checked. It's actually not the state of being that's best for us, even though we have such an aversion to chaos. It actually is beneficial.
Well, that's a very spiritual idea, too, is that pain, suffering, loss, and change are things that we should make friends with. And I'm completely on board with that.
Yeah.
But I said to Henry Winkler, who did my podcast, I said to him, I was in my bathroom, I was meditating, and I wasn't being very good at it, I guess, because I couldn't stop obsessing about a nose hair I had. And then I went into the bathroom and just spent way too long with a mirror, Val's like vanity mirror, and her tweezers looking for this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I'm plucking and I'm plucking and I'm crying because of plucking and then breathing. I'm like trying to see if it's still
Reactivate
in there.
it.
And then I'm holding my nose up like Chief Wiggum, like pig nose, and I'm getting in there deep. And somewhere in the middle of that, I just go, I gotta have some fucking kids. And as I leave, I tell Henry Winkler that story off mic, and he goes, and I'm like, I gotta have kids, and he goes, 3 years in, you'll be plucking again. It's like for 3 years. I just want to plug the book because you mentioned me stopping drinking.
Yeah.
I don't have a sponsorship with this person.
Right.
But-
yeah, because you don't go to AA or anything.
No, I don't go to AA.
Yeah.
And I'm actually curious because you did go through the program.
Currently.
Oh, you're in the program, yeah.
Yeah.
The book is called This Naked Mind. It's the first title. Control Alcohol is the second title. What I liked about the book for me was that it acknowledged the idea that you might be addicted to alcohol and you might have like been taken over by something that lied to you. All of these things that are like, here's the marketing. Here's what it does to you physiologically. Here's how people slowly drink more and more over time. I wasn't like a 28 beers at the ball game alcoholic. I was like a go home and have a bottle of wine every night kind of guy, or more if it was like hard liquor. I just like drinking at the end of the day.
Sure.
So nobody saw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
very non-eventful and controlled. And Valerie, this sounds defensive, but I mean it when I say Valerie wasn't like worried about my drinking. It was very Mad Men. I come home, you pour the brown stuff.
Shut the racket off inside your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like
Get a little piece.
And I actually have like really fond memories of playing video games on a Saturday and just drinking and just like completely disappearing.
Oh, it's great.
It was
Camping
great.
when you wake up and you start drinking right when you wake up. What a day.
But then I noticed that I was just losing control. That's what I liked the idea of this book is, and this is the part that I'm not sure how AA people would feel about it. But one of the things that appealed to me was that it said, maybe this is my ego, but let's remove, you don't have to be an alcoholic to be addicted to alcohol. For some reason, and maybe it was appealing, like I said, to my narcissism or my ego, it was just saying, who cares? Let's just get you to not drink.
Sure.
And for some reason, that helped me get in a little bit more.
First and foremost, I don't care how people quit drinking.
Yeah.
Which is I don't have stock in AA.
Yeah.
But I have noticed with a little bit of peculiarity that people are very hung up in a lot of the semantics of this stuff. So
Right.
I've heard a lot of people be put off by AA because you have to first admit you're powerless.
Right.
And people are like, well, I'm not powerless over, it's so triggering for them to be powerless.
Yeah. I'm fine with that one.
Yeah, to me, like vulnerability is generally the answer to all things.
Right. And if you don't think you're powerless, zoom out. We're on a space route.
Yes.
Never mind the solar system inside of you that could give you like an aneurysm or like anything at any moment.
The only
Sorry,
thing I
everybody.
will argue against other approaches is I just, as a rule of thumb, like I believe in gravity, I don't believe people think their ways into acting different. I think they act their ways into thinking different. So a program for quitting alcohol that doesn't involve some action, I have a low expectation for. Now, it does work for people, and I would never tell someone it's not working for them. But just in general, the thing I like about AA is it's not abstract. Here's what you do. Write this list. Call this person. Be available to this guy. Take that person to a meeting. Like there is you can't wake up one morning because you're so demoralized from the night before and decide I'm going to permanently remember that I felt this demoralized in 6 years and then this will be sustainable. For me, at least, I will forget 6 years later what it felt like. Of course you will. But if I have actions that are part of my regular muscle memory and routine, those things will do the lifting for me.
I hear that, and I completely agree.
And I also do think that there is a lot to uncover of why drinking would appeal to you in the first place.
Yeah.
I do believe that it is a symptom of a disease. The disease isn't drinking. That's just a symptom of this other disease we have. Quite often AA, I'll go, because we always say like, well, I have this alcoholic mind, this alcoholic blank, alcoholic, and I'll go, this isn't alcoholism. This is being human.
Yeah.
These are human problems. I think everyone could pretty much benefit from the steps.
Right. No, I hear that. I think here, even though I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, I would never go into that program because, and right or wrong, I never reached a place where I felt like, oh no, I don't have control over this, or it's interfering with my life in any way.
But again, this is another stumbling block that's really popular or ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But you can march that all the way. To me, watching an HBO documentary about drug addiction, which I watch, and there was a guy in New York City who would buy crack, then he would melt the crack and shoot the crack up. And I could tell myself, well, fuck, I've never melted crack down and shot it up. Maybe I'm not an addict. Like if you can only define yourself that way in comparison to someone else, saying it's lesser or more, that it's so irrelevant. The point is, you either were using something that stopped working for you, or you weren't. Now, what level that was is pretty immaterial, in my opinion. You were either trying to regulate the inside with something from the outside and it stopped working for you, or you weren't. And that's pretty much the definition for me of an addict.
Is,
yeah, it's not like, did you lose your job or are you penniless? It's did you regulate your emotions with something? And did you get to a point where you realized that wasn't going to work anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's an alcoholic or an addict. And you can do it with sex, with food, with gambling, with shopping.
Right.
Any of those things where you're controlling the inside with shit on the outside.
Right.
And that stops working. Now we're in trouble. Because now what? Like, think how fun drinking was. And then think how many times you've been in a bar reading the back label on a beer bottle. Like, oh yeah, it was brewed in Anheuser-Busch. And you're just reading over and over
You
again.
told me
St.
that
Louis.
story.
Yeah.
Yes.
How embarrassing for me. That's the scariest moment I've had in my life, was I'm drunk and I'm bored out of my mind reading the label on this bottle over and over again because it stopped working. Now what do I do? Because now I don't even have the fucking medicine because it's no longer working.
Right. This book is very, very thorough. You know what it is? It's like Alan Carr's book, Quit Smoking the Easy Way.
Oh,
It's one of these things that, like, I still think it's really great. I'm not saying I won't at some point maybe do AA because that does sound interesting to me.
Yeah.
But there's, for an entry into getting me off booze, I recommend the audiobook. I would say if you like drinking and you'd like to keep drinking, don't read it.
Yeah.
It's like one of these books that you're like, because here's what I liked about it is that it shifted the narrative. It's not like it's bad for your liver, or people don't like you when you're drunk, or you shouldn't change your insides with your outsides. It's none of that. It's just like alcohol made you its bitch. You're a bitch.
Yeah.
It's not mean like this, but it's like you were lied to. It's a very addictive chemical. You can call it alcoholism or not. Either way, you are addicted. You thought you had control. It doesn't have to be like we're saying, I woke up with the car keys in my ass, sort of Robin Williams stories.
Yeah.
It can just be like, my rock bottom was I came home and I was going to sit on the couch and watch some stuff. And I forgot we had a friend staying with us. And I just went to the back house. But on my way, I just picked up, I like sake. I just picked up a bottle of sake and I poured myself a big glass. I went in the back. I didn't drink it because I looked at it like you with the beer label. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what it was I didn't remember giving myself the order, like get some wine or why I wanted wine or whatever. So I had a minor inconvenience. And then I was like, well, I should get hammered and just sort of time travel to the next morning.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I said, it's not like a great story. It's a pretty boring story. But I like that the book came at it from a place of just like, you don't have to think of yourself as an alcoholic. As an alcoholic.
Yeah. But when I retire, I think I'll start doing all those drugs again.
Really?
Yeah, my kids are safely at college and stuff.
Drugs.
Get a golf cart. Drinking all of it. Just do all of it.
No, is this
my
real?
whole thing is once I no longer operate a car and my penis doesn't work, I'm safe to do all those things again.
Oh.
Because we can't trust me on any of those things while my penis is still working and while I can drive a car.
Wow.
But if I'm in the retirement community and I only travel by golf cart and my penis doesn't work, fucking bring it on.
That is hilarious.
Well, Pete, I love you. I'm really glad that we got to do this.
I know.
And I really do want to
do
talk to you post baby. Like maybe like a year after you've had your little baby girl.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Fact check. Working at the fact check.
That was nice.
Yeah, it was nice and short.
It was nice and succinct. Although you did say you were going to start making songs up about me.
I know, and I haven't had any time yet, but I'm gonna.
Okay. Anyway, hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
You're real hungry. Miniature Mouse has got a ferocious appetite.
I'm very hungry.
What are you gonna eat when you leave here?
I really want Italian food.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Maybe some lasagna?
Maybe some lasagna. I love lasagna. Yeah, I don't know, but I am starving.
You want something substantial. You want some carbohydrates. You want some cheese, and you want some noodles.
Yeah, but I you know what? I always want that.
Yeah, we all do, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
How do you train yourself to not want that?
I know. Well, I'll tell you how it happens, because you and I both will watch Mom eat. Mm-hmm. And she eats perfect, right? I mean, she just eats.
I saw her eat a baked potato. Okay, let's not put it out there.
That's good. A baked potato, more potassium than a banana.
Okay, and tons of carbs.
Oh yeah, well, carbs aren't necessarily bad, are they? If they're not empty. Empty carbs are.
It's not perfect eating to eat a baked potato with sour cream and cheese on it. I don't want.
I would eat one with a hot dog crammed in it. Like use the potato as a bun.
Oh wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, all right. Let me rephrase it.
Okay.
Our mom eats a ton of vegetables.
She does.
Like you sit down with her and she's got like 4 courses and all 4 are vegetables. And I always look at it and I'm like, how can she do it? But I have at times gone on diets. And then by day 3 of eating like her, it all tastes good. It's just like you got to like decompress from how good that other shit is and reset your bar.
Yeah, I think that's true. If you kind of just train your brain that it doesn't need to taste good. Mm-hmm. Like not everything needs to taste amazing.
Yeah.
Then things start tasting good. Then broccoli, which I love broccoli, but broccoli starts tasting good.
Yeah.
When we're not deciding between that and lasagna.
Well, even I was vegan for a year, right?
Yeah.
And during that time, I was at work and they had a baked potato bar. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't put sour cream on it, butter, cheese, any of that, right? But I hadn't had that stuff in 6 months or something. And I just took a bite of the goddamn potato and it was fucking delicious.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's been my whole life since a potato tasted good without a bunch of shit on it.
Right.
But it was damn good. Just get into that spud.
Yeah.
You know, hot, yummy potato on its own. It was good. But if I ate it today, I'd be like, barf.
Because I had a friend who was asking, who was trying to get on a diet, who was trying to get their body healthy.
Uh-huh.
And she was asking me what I ate for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, if I'm doing well, I eat a salad for lunch.
Right.
And she's like, but that doesn't taste good. And I don't know what to tell you. It's not everything needs to taste good. Like your lunch doesn't have to taste good.
Yeah. Well, when I've been on like crazy diets for movies, at that point, I just tell myself, no, you're just eating because you need to eat to stay alive. This isn't a highlight of your day. You're going to have to make something else a highlight of your day. This isn't a source of pleasure. It's a source of sustenance.
Yeah. But sometimes when I'm eating really well, I feel a little bit, this is going to sound horrible.
Okay, good.
But
that's what we're always looking for.
Sometimes when I'm eating really healthily, I can tell I'm in my brain not very healthy. Like I'm using that. I get really strict about it.
You're right. It's a controlling thing.
It's very controlling. So sometimes when I'm eating healthy, I'm like, oh, actually, I'm not in that good of a place because I'm super focused on this. I can only eat this avocado for breakfast. But it's not like I'm trying to lose weight. I'm just trying to regulate emotions, probably.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I don't know
either.
know.
I don't know. Sometimes like when I'm in the convincing mood, like I want to eat a whole fucking cheese pizza.
Yeah.
I tell myself, why even be alive? Why do I want to live so long just so I can not enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And then that makes a lot of sense to me in that moment. And then, other times I'm like, no, you feel like shit when you eat like that. That's
I
the
do
truth.
want pizza right now.
Okay, I'll buy you one. Let me call him right now. Beep, 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 beep. Thank you for calling Lucifer's Pizza.
Anyway.
The bottom line is the verdict's out. We don't know what you're going to eat when you leave here.
We don't.
Hopefully you'll update everyone on Thursday.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
So, Peter
Holmes.
So, this old house.
Bob Vila.
Yeah, so it's Bob Vila.
Well, is it?
Yeah, it is. I looked it up, and it's spelled with one L.
Oh, then I accept it. I thought it was Villa.
I know. And
Well, like just because Robert decides that we don't pronounce LL with a Y, if it's a Spanish word, doesn't mean it is.
see, I have a problem with this. Yes, people know how to say their name. Like, I had this friend, I don't know if I should say her name, but I had this friend in middle school, and her last name was Knutson.
Okay.
And my mom was like,
the dairy product with the KNUD, like the cottage cheese, Knudsen cottage cheese, Knudsen?
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
But it was Knutson, and my mom was like, no, it's that K is silent.
Right.
And I was like, no, she knows her name. How arrogant of you to think you know. I didn't say that, but I probably said something worse. But how arrogant of you to think you know somebody else's name better than them, like Rihanna.
Is that a big one?
Yes. She pronounces it Rihanna, and that is...
Oh, the sex giraffe?
Yes.
She pronounces her name Rihanna?
Yes, because it's
I'll
Rihanna.
call her any goddamn name
I
she
know,
wants me
I
to. Let me
know.
climb up that giraffe highness. Highness?
Why don't you?
Hindquarters.
Hiney? What are you even trying to say?
I think
don't know.
hindquarters. Haunches. I was mixed between
Okay.
haunches and hindquarters.
Well, you need to ask her first if you have permission to do that. But yeah,
Well, I would never mount someone's hindquarters without, some
consent.
consent, be that physical or verbal or whatever.
Right.
We do talk on here, like people ask who our hall pass is when we Christians are well documented. And I never really have an answer.
Okay, so she's
I'm
your-
putting her on the list.
All right.
The sex giraffe.
Well, I don't think
That's fine.
it is.
A giraffe is a majestic, she's got a long torso and neck.
I know. I just
Yeah, well-
you shouldn't be calling women, naming them after animals.
It feels so complimentary. Anyone that knows Rihanna,
Okay.
ask her if she finds it complimentary to be called a sex giraffe. What if we found out that, let's say that Zach Braff, you found out, referred to you as the sex chinchilla?
I hate that.
You hate
I
it?
hated what you
Oh.
just said. Yeah. No.
Sex chinchilla?
Ew. What?
Wouldn't you want him to just be saying
Why
sex
am I a
anything?
No. See, that's the difference.
Here's the breakdown. Teach me.
You're seeing her as simply a sexual object, a sexual animal, actually, not a
sex giraffe.
not a person. She's a person, not
Of course she
sexual
is. She's
animal.
super talented person. Can we not?
And no,
We
it
can't
doesn't
just wanna
feel
fuck
comfortable. By the
people?
way, it doesn't feel comfortable always to think all these men are seeing you purely as a sexual being.
Well, we're just talking about my hall pass right now, so it's really
No, but you said
implicitly about sex.
You said wouldn't you want sex in front of any name?
Right.
No.
Well, not sex rat. Is there an animal though that you would like to be called sex blank?
No, I just mean it's not all that comfortable for a woman to feel like every single man on earth wants to have sex with her, because that's dangerous. There's some danger there.
So now we're getting to a genuine conversation. Now, do you not want people that you like to think of you as sexy and sexual?
People that I like, not every person on the street. No, I don't. I don't want to be walking down the street and a guy sitting on the curb to think that, or to see my body and think that.
So I'm complimenting myself, I guess. Maybe I'm arrogant at this moment, but I give myself enough credit that Rihanna would like knowing that I'm sexually attracted to her.
Okay.
Do you think she would or wouldn't?
I don't know. I don't know what her opinion is.
Well, of course
you.
we don't know. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if you would hearken a guess.
Well, I don't know how she would feel about you just calling her that. I don't know. She might love it. She might.
Yeah.
I don't.
And she might hate it. Rihanna, if you don't like it, I'll never say it again. And if you like it, I will say it a lot.
Keep saying it.
Yeah.
Also, why would he call me a chinchilla?
It was the first funny animal name I could think of, which is, I do stand by the fact that chinchilla is a funny name. They also don't have
But
rib
why would
cages.
anyone want to be a funny name something?
I was trying to make you laugh. So I was trying to pick a funny animal that I could put sex in front of that would make you giggle.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were trying to make a point, a real point.
I will always prioritize trying to make you laugh, I think, over a point, but maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Oh, but anyways,
If anyone called me a chinchilla, I would feel upset.
you'd
I'm
be
just
bummed.
putting that out there.
Is there an animal? Well, again, it's Matt Damon. Someone you really want to think you're a sex machine,
Okay.
a smoke show.
Okay, they
sex
can use
bomb.
those words.
Well, okay, but is there an animal that you would be your preference that they said a sex something? I guess what I'm wondering is if, like, I can definitely, it's obvious the guys tattoo it on their bodies. Like, there's some pretty generic, popular animals guys want to be associated with. A wolf,
Sure. Yeah.
a lion, a bald eagle.
Right.
And I'm just curious if women have any animals that they're
I mean,
dying
there
to be.
are. I think there's like for a lot of there's panthers are like sexual.
Oh, sex panther.
Sex panthers probably
Yeah.
something that gets said. Yeah.
And was that the name of the cologne in Anchorman?
Oh, I don't remember.
Sex Panther?
I don't remember.
Or was it made of panther parts? I
No,
don't know.
it wasn't. I don't think it was Sex Panther.
Well, what if Ben Affleck always referred to you as the Sex Panther? I'm into it. I hope you are.
But why do you hope I am? Like, why is that like a positive thing and it's a negative thing if I'm not?
It's not negative. It would just I like it when you're excited. So I'm wondering if you found out Ben Affleck referred to you as a sex panther, if you would feel a little spring in your step.
Okay, well, I guess he hasn't had sex with me.
No, nor have I with Anna.
Yeah, so you don't know.
No, I don't. No,
How
it's all fantasy.
Right. So what you're really saying is you're not saying she's good at sex. You're saying
No,
I
think
want to have sex with that person.
there's some people I think love sex and don't love sex, and I couldn't prove it in a court of law. It's just we have vibes about who we think's good in bed and who's not good in bed, or else I wouldn't even have a fantasy about her. Why have a sexual fantasy about someone if you're not going to at least assume they're great in bed? Like, don't you think Matt and Ben are good in bed?
That has actually very little to do with the fantasy for me.
But when you
For
imagine,
women, I think the fantasy is so much more about the person,
The
what they're
brain.
giving you, not sexual. I mean,
but
sure,
you
that
do
becomes a part of
imagine
it.
the sex will be great, right?
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't like fantasize about someone where at the end of the fantasy, the sex is terrible.
Oh, yes.
You would change
I
people.
Agree.
Okay, thank you.
But you are saying what I'm saying, that when you call her a sex giraffe, you are saying, I want to have sex with that person.
What if you said, you're saying you want to have sex with a giraffe?
Well,
Well, I think
maybe.
if we really broke it down and drilled into it, I think if I called her like a sex kitty or a sex mouse or something, to me, that would imply almost a level of misogyny. Like, I want a little tiny creature I'm going to control. Whereas I'm actually saying, I'm intimidated to have sex with Rihanna. God grant me some strength to please this thing. Okay? Getting worse?
Yeah,
Am
I don't know
deeper in
about
the
this.
hole?
I don't know. But I'm just saying, for women, when a whole bunch of men are labeling them as sexual, that's,
Feels dangerous.
yeah. I mean, people can be sexual and women can own their sexuality and all of that's great, but to nickname a person sex something, it just reduces them down to one thing, and that one thing can be about male power. So it's hard.
Now, do we think it's relevant to like evaluate my full pattern of behavior? Like we talk about actresses all the time on here, and I'm never just talking about them as a sex object. But for my get out of jail free hall pass,
Yeah, that doesn't mean she's a sex object. That's the the language is not.
I'm not
good.
doing it well. Okay.
I don't think you can ever refer to anyone as a sex object.
Well,
They're a person.
yeah.
They're not an object. They're not something for you to
please myself with.
and then leave on the floor like a chair.
Well,
or
I'm
something.
married. I'm going to have to leave eventually.
Can you just?
Yeah, I acknowledge what you're saying.
Okay. Can you just
Yeah.
call them people?
Yeah. Again, I'm trapped in that. I would love it if Rihanna or anyone looked at me as a sex object. I would be like, oh, they just want to fuck me? That's
I know.
so flattering.
I know. I know.
Yeah, so it's hard to imagine that wouldn't be flattering, but I believe you.
I'm not saying this gets so tricky because I'm not saying it's not flattering, but it's different when a woman says it.
Yes, it's much safer.
It's safer.
Mm-hmm.
It is safer.
Yeah. Unless I meet her at some point and I say to her, like, hey, I don't know why, but I like to think of you as a sex giraffe. How do you feel about that? And she's like, I love that. Then I'll report back.
Yeah, it's interesting because if like Ben or Matt or someone who I find really sexually attractive came up to me and said, I think of you as a sex kitten or a sex chinchilla. Ugh. I can't believe you said that. Anyway.
Do you think I actually thought in my head what animal you resemble?
Kind of.
That I could look at me in the eyes. That didn't happen.
Well,
I was searching.
I think.
Oh, you, but I don't think you even know what a chinchilla looks like.
Yes, I do.
You do?
We almost got one in college.
Oh, then I believe you. Most people don't know what a chinchilla looks like. They're very bizarre. No one has one. I went through my Rolodex name of animals, and I thought of the funniest one that jumped out first was chinchilla because it sounds funny. Mm-hmm. Sex chinchilla.
Yeah. Anyway,
but they said, so you ran into Matt or someone you're sexually attracted to.
Yeah, and they said, I think of you as a sex panther. My reaction would be, I like that. Mm-hmm. I think I would say that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's just because I'm like conditioned to want to have sex with me. But then if we had sex and then they left, I wouldn't be happy.
Yeah. I think the answer to it is what do you want to be seen as? Like, I don't think the thing you'd want most to hear from Ben or Matt is that they love your brain. Even though that's your favorite part of yourself, I think you and I share that in common where I'm like, yeah, I get it. I have a good personality. I want you to think I'm hot.
Well,
I want you to think I'm physically
that
attractive.
You are insecure about. Mm-hmm. So you want security. You want
and
someone
I guess
to provide
I think we share that in common.
Yeah.
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 Many people think you're a sex panther.
Okay. The conversation about some guys like using basically their
outward feminism.
Yeah. Be attractive. Yeah. I just think that is short selling those people so much.
What you and I don't agree on and what Kristen and I don't agree on is that you believe there are men that aren't trying to attract as many women as humanly possible.
Yeah, I don't.
And I don't believe that.
I know.
Yeah. We just have different opinions on that. And I respect yours. But I think every single guy wants as many people to like him as possible. And then they're evaluating what strengths they have and they're leaning into those and they're trying to downplay whatever things they think are not attractive about them. I think all animals on this planet are trying to attract mates. I don't think humans get out of it.
No, but that's not men. Every person is trying to make themselves the most attractive version of who they are. And
that's right.
Yeah. I just don't. I know you think every guy is like that, and I don't. I know guys that are not looking around at every single girl and thinking I want to fuck them. They're not. Some are, but not.
Is it possible though? I mean, just consider this possibility that as a woman, you're not let in on that we don't let you in on that we know not to let women in on that, because I have a million times been absolutely shocked by this person who I thought was asexual or was a nerd or wasn't all these things. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching them and they're watching the girl with the big boobs walk across the room. And then I look at him and then he smiles and I go, oh, no, he's an animal who's male. It's what we are. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't do this or that. But I mean, I just can't tell you how I being on the side where it's safe to acknowledge you think someone's boobs are nice. There is no pattern. There's no personality type. Guys they're animals that want to procreate. I don't think there's some that don't. I think there are a bunch of different personality types, but I think all the guys, you put all 10 of them in a row, every single type, You walk a naked lady by with big, voluminous breasts, they all have the same reaction.
Maybe.
Yeah, we don't.
But I think that there's definitely degrees. And I think, sure, I think you're right. I think every guy probably who saw your sex giraffe walk by naked, they probably would like it. Yes.
And then,
every heterosexual guy, yes.
Yeah, and then all kinds of things then come after that. Like some guy is nervous. He would never want to have sex with her because he'd be too terrified he couldn't please her. And then another guy's issue would be X, Y, or Z. Like there's any number of outcomes of how the behavior then would manifest itself. But I do think the original thing would be the same. And then just all the different things that make up someone's personality kick in, all these layers, and then the outcome could be dramatically different. One of the guys is going to say hi to her. Another guy's she looks at him, he's going to turn around embarrassed really quick. But that woman shouldn't interpret that the guy who turned around embarrassed versus the guy who said hello to them had a different physiological response to what they saw.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
But I don't think that person who decides to not approach her is doing that as a tactic to get more women. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not every motivation, not everything is about that.
I agree with you. 100%. And I also think some guys do use it as what's attractive to women about themselves, is that they are a super outspoken advocate for women. I do think that also exists.
It is attractive.
Yeah. I'd be attracted to that if I was a woman.
Yeah. Anyway, you said having a bachelor party is an alpha move, and that claiming a whole weekend with the bros is alpha. And then you said if you told your wife you were having a bachelor party and she would have laughed herself silly, much less a weekend. And you go on weekends with your friends sometimes, so I have to fact check.
To ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
Oh,
that could have been a bachelor party.
Oh, no. I am not in any way saying that my wife wouldn't encourage me to go do the things I like and grant me time. She does that for sure. She would never grant me a weekend to go to Vegas and go to strip clubs. Yeah, that shit wouldn't fly in my house, is all I'm saying.
I totally disagree.
Ask her.
I will.
Yeah, when we first met, let me tell you something. She said, I don't ever want you to go to a strip club. I think everyone in a strip club that's working there is a victim of trauma. Yet I didn't until I did in Thailand, because I was brought by the girlfriends and wives of the cast to a strip club. And the whole time I'm like, I'm fucked. Like, I'm going to have to tell her I'm at this strip club. But they just said, let us take you out in Bangkok. And I ended up at a she-male bar and then just a normal strip club. And then I used to tell this story in stand-up. They tried to call me on stage. And luckily I didn't go. I was feeling very codependent. The old lady who was running was like, oh, come on, you come on stage. And just doing crying signs like, oh, come on, they're sad. Luckily, one of the women stopped, saved me from having to go on stage. When the guy who went up on stage, they did bring a guy up. They set him in a chair. He was over there looking at his buddies, turned his head to the right. When he turned back, a stripper had come on stage, and she ran and she threw her leg up over his head onto a pole and smack right in his mouth.
Wow.
Her vagina was in his mouth within under a second. He was looking at his friends like, hey, I'm on stage. Turned around, bam, right in the mouth. And I was like, holy fuck, my whole life flashed before my eyes. I was like, I was almost the guy in that chair. And there were all these Australians that liked Parenthood that they were yelling, crazy. And they had cameras. There would have been a photo with me with a vagina in my mouth in Thailand. I panicked. It was like seeing someone get hit by a bus where I was walking.
Yeah,
I was like, holy
scary.
fuck, this all almost ended. So I got home and I told her that whole story. But it required that much of a story for it to have been okay for me to be in a strip club in Thailand.
You're talking about a very standard. You're talking about a bachelor party where there's strippers and you're in Vegas.
Yeah, that's all I was referring to. Like, yeah, I'm thinking of the old-fashioned, traditional, wild weekend, naked girls, lap dance, and that's part, that's
Yes.
definitely a big majority of them are that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's true.
And just that I could have never had that.
Yeah, that I get.
I don't want that, by the way.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about strippers.
Yeah.
I don't like being a customer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been for me anyways.
Right. The Sean Hayes play about God is called An Act of God.
An Act of God.
Yeah.
He performed the shit out of that.
I bet he did.
I've never seen someone say more words in a 2-hour span in my whole life.
Wow.
I was in a flop sweat just watching it.
He's so talented.
He is.
Oh, you talk about how sometimes you'll be with your kids and people will come up and you're enjoying your time and they'll say like, wait till they're teenagers, and you don't like that, which I understand not liking that, of course. But I think what they're trying to do is tell you that they have kids and connect with you on that.
Yeah.
So it's not meant to make you feel like...
No, it's all my issue. I would also argue they're imploring me to really enjoy this
They
moment.
are, I think.
Yeah.
People just want to connect. They just don't know how.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, who are you to tell me my kids are going to be terrible when they're It's all me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel judged.
Right.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell's book and the movie Happy about money, that money statistic came up again. How much money?
Oh, makes you actually happier.
Uh-huh. And according to a new analysis by wealth experts, this was in 2017, experts say that happiness does increase with wealth, but the correlation peaks at earning $75,000 per year.
75 grand.
That's it. That was the last stat in 2017.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
Again, I think location is a factor.
Big time.
Big time.
75 grand in New York City and Manhattan.
Yeah.
Good luck, motherfucker. You're going to be panhandling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I always think that when we're in New York, I'm like,
know.
oh, this is an awesome city, but I'd want to be a billionaire.
you'd have to have $1 billion.
Yeah, I want to get driven everywhere in a fucking
I know.
town car.
But I told you this when we were there because Kristen was shooting a movie and I was with the girls a lot, and we technically had that. We had, because we were there for the production. So we had a nice apartment. It wasn't huge, but there was
space.
Much more than what most people have in New York City.
Yes.
And we had access.
It was the equivalent of probably like a $3 million apartment or $4 million apartment.
Probably, yeah. And it was still so hard.
Yeah.
It was still so hard to live there. Because I always thought that. I was like, oh, I guess you'd have to have like $1 billion or $20 million to be able to do this. But really, it's just hard. It's hard to raise kids in that city, regardless of how much money you have.
Yeah, yeah. But I will reiterate the thing they always say about New York, which I do agree with, is it's a weirdly democratizing city, because once you leave that really nice apartment, you are on the exact same sidewalk as everyone else, and you're dealing with the same plight of that many people and everything.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You can't escape that.
Yeah, there's no special sidewalk and special line
it's
at
kind of great.
Starbucks. It is.
I just wouldn't want to have kids there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it on your own, but boy, you got a 2-year-old about to dart out in front of a cab.
Speaking of New York, you were just there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I tried to surprise you, and it didn't work out. There's a cheeseburger in New York at Emily's
In Brooklyn.
Oh, that we had when we were there for our live show, and it was the best
hamburger we've ever had.
Ever.
By a factor of 3 or 4.
God, it was so good.
And can I just say what happened is we looked at the price, and the price was $27 for the hamburger.
Yeah.
And I said to you, this is fucking obnoxious.
Yeah.
$27 for a hamburger. Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
The burgers arrived. After my very first bite, I looked at you and I said, this burger is very underpriced.
Yep. We would pay, after eating it, I would pay $80.
I think I would too. I really think I would. Of course, I wouldn't eat it every day, but
yeah.
I mean, anything under 100, I would probably still
It's a
be
steal. Yeah, it was.
I hope we don't encourage them to jack it up that high, but I mean, I put it against any fucking bone-in ribeye you'd ever have somewhere, dry aged, whatever, that people would spend $90 on. So
pretzel roll,
the best,
caramelized onions. I mean, there's just
French onion soup basically on it.
Oh, So I reached out to them to see if we could get one delivered to your hotel.
Yep.
And they said...
This was your version of the parents coming to the show. This was like going to be payback.
Yeah, but I failed.
Well, no.
So then we contacted Emily directly.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You spoke with Emily.
Texted, yes.
She's a real person.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Did you feel like you were talking to like a movie star?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. But she said under no circumstance will they let a burger leave their establishment, like in whole like that. And she said even if Barack Obama asked, she would say no.
Oh, God
So
bless
then
her
I
integrity.
I was like, okay, I get it.
What if someone was dying?
I
Like, what if
know.
you
What if
text
it
her
was
and
a
say,
Make-A-Wish?
Dax is dying? And
this would
the
save
doctors
him?
have figured out the only thing that'll save him is a $27 hamburger.
I don't know if she would. I don't know if she would. It was sad.
There's
but
probably
great.
a bunch of people that live in Brooklyn right now that are like, shut the fuck up about
I
that
know.
burger.
I know.
I don't want to have to wait 3 hours
It's
to have
already
it.
it's already
rough. Yeah.
It's already that line.
Because we got there at like 5 p.m. and we just barely.
And it was still full. It was full.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good burger. I want it so bad.
That was going on 5 months ago. And I don't think we've ever gone 36 hours without talking about it. And I've shown the picture of the burger to maybe like 100 people.
I know, me too.
We should post on the
picture of it?
Instagram account that one you sent me, yeah,
Okay.
which is the one I always show people.
Okay.
All right.
Oof. All right.
Thanks, Emily, and no thanks, you know.
I wish I could.
Thanks and thanks for nothing.
I wish I could have that for dinner.
Oh, God. That burger's a sex giraffe.
Yeah, yes, it is.
It's a sex burger.
It's a sex chinchilla.
All right. I love you.
Love you.